The Ying Prefecture's Luo family's resurgence within the Ying Prefecture can be traced back to the Archaic era. However, due to a lack of any illustrious history beforehand, there is no way to trace the beginning of their family. The Luo family's resurgence started at the hands of Luo Changfeng and continued for 3,170,000 years, making them one of the three overlords of the Ying Prefecture. Chen quickly found records of the Luo family. They were originally a very small family, but after they gave rise to Luo Changfeng, the entire family's fate changed. The Ying Prefecture originally had three overlords, but the Luo family replaced one and was so dominating that they became the head of the three overlords. The family that had been replaced by the Luo family was the Chu family. When the Luo family started rising, they were faced with many blockades and bloody battles from the Chu family, but even then, the Chu family was unable to stop their rise. The Luo family was originally only intending on standing on the same level as the three overlords, but the Chu family didn't give them any chance. They wanted to pull the Luo family up by the roots and crush them. As for the other two families, they were conservative, choosing to stand by and watch. The Chu family, on the other hand, was extremely powerful and domineering. The other two families had been forced to endure that arrogance for a long time, so they were happy to see the Chu family face bad luck. As a result, while they supported the Chu family on the surface, they secretly gave the Luo family even more support. It was a win for them either way. In the end, the Luo family managed to rise through those circumstances, overthrowing the Chu family and forcing them to flee the Ying Prefecture. All of the Chu family's properties in the Ying Prefecture were then taken by the Luo family. Originally, people thought that the Chu family would slink away and slowly fade away after taking such damage. After all, their elites had been slain in that bloody battle. However, unexpectedly, after a few thousand years, the Chu family escaped to the Shang Prefecture and hid their identity. They then began to recuperate until they suddenly erupted with shocking power in 20,000 years, taking over the Shang Prefecture. After hiding themselves for 20,000 years, they no longer concealed themselves. They revealed that they were the Ying Prefecture's Chu family, and furthermore, they swore to slaughter all the people of the Luo family. However, even though the Chu family had become the overlord of the Shang Prefecture, the Luo family also managed to develop for many years and were even stronger than before. The two powers then fought for countless years. Rivers of blood were shed between them, but neither was able to crush the other. The two sides were now mortal enemies. As long as they had the opportunity, they would fight to the death. The enmity between them had already sunk into the bone, the blood, and the soul of every member of the two families. However, in comparison to the two, the Luo family was slightly stronger. The Chu family had used countless sinister schemes but were unable to rattle the Luo family's foundation. Due to the slight power discrepancy, the Chu family was forced to use all sorts of schemes. But the more they did so, the more others looked down on them. In the end, the Shang Prefecture's Chu family gained the reputation of being shameless and despicable. Chen had looked through this entire section on the Luo family, but he didn't find anything relating to his mother. However, that made sense. These historical records only contained major events. They wouldn't include a random woman. Although he didn't find any clue about his mother specifically, he did see hope. Hopefully, once his position was stable, he could take a trip to the Luo family. However, before going, he would have to accumulate enough strength. A family that had been developing for this many years had to be gigantic. In such a family, human emotions were nothing compared to profit. If he wanted to have a voice in such a place, he had to have a corresponding power. The immortal world was even more merciless than the mortal world. As the longevity of the people here was too long, they gave birth to countless descendants. Hence, familial affection was not the ties upon which inheritances were passed down. The laws here were cruel and merciless. Power was the most important thing. Everything here is important. The senior is right, I should read more, muttered Chen to himself. This history touched upon the foundation of the entire immortal world. The more he understood, the more beneficial it would be. However, there were simply too many books here. Reading them one by one would take too much time which Chen didn't have. Fortunately, there was a palm-sized rune on every bookshelf. This formation rune was connected to all the books on the shelf, and that was over 1,000 books. If someone's spiritual strength was strong enough, they wouldn't need to read the books one by one. They could read them one bookshelf after another. Long Chen's hand then pressed on the rune, and over 1,000 runes lit up throughout the bookshelf. Like tadpoles, those runes swam toward Long Chen, spreading from his arm up to his head. When the first rune entered his mind, Long Chen sucked in a cold gasp of air. That one rune contained the contents of the entire book. It was a forceful branding that caused pain to his soul. At the same time as his soul twinged, his spiritual strength was exhausted. After that, more and more of those runes entered his mind, sealing their information in his soul. After a full incense stick's worth of time, Long Chen's face was as pale as paper. A bout of dizziness almost overcame him. If he didn't lean on the bookshelf, he would have fallen. A single bookshelf's books exhausted almost 90% of my spiritual strength. Moreover, there are at least millions of these bookshelves on this floor. If I go one day at a time, it will take forever just to read through them all. Long Chen felt profoundly helpless. He walked unsteadily outside, feeling pangs throughout his head. This was a natural reaction after absorbing so much information. Fortunately, his spiritual strength was powerful enough to absorb all this information. If it was someone else, they would have severely overdrafted their spiritual strength and fainted. There was no chance of them recovering without a year of rest. Instructor Long Chen, there is a soul stone recovery room over here. You can rest for a few days. With it, you can recover most of your spiritual strength before leaving. A worker saw Long Chen walking away and gave him a reminder. Those who entered the Divine Scripture Pavilion all used up a great deal of their spiritual strength to absorb so much information. Hence, the God Institute installed soul stone recovery rooms to encourage their disciples to read more. These rooms were available to disciples for free so that they could recover. Otherwise, they would be like Long Chen. Without 10 to 15 days, there was no way to recover from using up 90% of his spiritual strength unless he used some outside help. This was a good thing. Long Chen then thanked the worker for the reminder, and the worker brought him to the room. There were hundreds of them, many of them with people inside. Some even had multiple people. Long Chen then entered a room specifically for instructors. He was the only one present, and at the center of the room was a foot-long crystal. His soul was instantly refreshed when he entered the room. As the disciple activated the formation for Long Chen, a dense spiritual aura instantly filled the room. This was the best condition for restoring the soul. Long Chen once more thanked the disciple. Once the disciple left, Long Chen opened the divine gate within his mind sea. The divine gate star shuddered, and like a whale opening its mouth, the spiritual aura of this place rushed toward it. After 4 hours, Long Chen let out a long sigh. He felt reinvigorated as his spiritual strength was fully recovered. What a marvelous object! It helped me recover so quickly. Long Chen looked at the soul stone in amazement. The academy truly had many treasures. Such a good thing was being offered up for free. What Long Chen didn't know was that others required 3 to 5 days to fully recover with the soul stone. It was only due to the divine gate star that his recovery was so quick. Continue. Long Chen then ran back inside the pavilion and chose another bookshelf. He absorbed its contents once again. This time, Long Chen chose a bookshelf containing introductory books to cultivation fundamentals. This kind of information was equally important to Long Chen. Although Long Chen had his own cultivation method, he didn't know how others in the immortal world cultivated. He didn't even know about the realms. Furthermore, the cultivation types in the immortal world were thousands of times more complex than on the martial heaven continent. There were all kinds of different ways to cultivate, giving rise to countless branches and sections. If he didn't even have a basic understanding of these things, he would be at a disadvantage against many opponents in the future. This information was a must. There was just as much information about cultivating as there was about history. Hence, Long Chen absorbed the whole bookshelf, restored his spiritual strength, and then absorbed another history bookshelf. He alternated just like this. Seeing Long Chen recover and then go absorb more knowledge so rapidly dumbfounded the workers and disciples studying here. Instructor Long Chen, is your soul able to endure this? Asked one astonished disciple. They normally absorb the books one by one in order to reduce the impact on their souls, but Long Chen was going bookshelf by bookshelf. Although that increased his efficiency, it was harmful. The different bookshelves had different runes. Sometimes they could clash, resulting in even more spiritual strength being drained. Moreover, it also hurt, almost like spiritual torture. A normal person wouldn't be able to endure such a thing. Furthermore, while ordinarily it took someone at least an hour to absorb a bookshelf's information, Long Chen only used an incense stick's worth of time. That kind of rapid absorption would cause an even greater impact on the soul. Although there were some ruthless people throughout history who had done the same, they would always need to leave and wait a few more days after absorbing an entire bookshelf's information. Even though the soul could be recovered, the mental impact was difficult to endure. In order to protect the information within the books, the runes that entered the soul were somewhat forceful. They caused pain in order to stimulate a person's memory. Absorbing an entire bookshelf worth of knowledge was like undergoing a torture session. Even someone with a firm will didn't dare to do it twice in a row because normal people would crumble under that pressure. However, Long Chen had already done it 5 or 6 times, dumbfounding the people here. Wasn't this too ruthless? Every time he was done, he turned as pale as paper. That was a clear sign that he was using up too much of his spiritual strength. There was no way he was faking it. Furthermore, someone as illustrious as him would have no need to use little tricks to gain fame. I'm fine. This little bit of pain is nothing to me, said Long Chen. After recovering, he continued studying. Watching him go back and forth gave people goosebumps. Had the formations changed on the bookshelves? Were they easier to absorb than before? In the end, one person ended up testing it, only to end up fainting after a few breaths' time. Others then carried him off. This was a result of the pain being too much to bear. Even though he still had more spiritual strength to spare, his body automatically protected itself by making him faint, ending the absorption process. After that, Long Chen ran back and forth over 10 times before he finally stopped. His soul had actually grown after all the exhaustion and pain. Before this, it took 90% to absorb one bookshelf, but now just 70% was enough. He hadn't expected this to be another method to train the soul. Long Chen had a basic understanding now with all the information he had absorbed. As he was no longer a novice when it came to cultivation in the immortal world, he felt much steadier inside. However, through all this information, he also grew more mystified by everything in the immortal world. This was a world of unknowns waiting for him to explore and excavate its mysteries. Every bit of knowledge he accumulated now could increase his chances of survival in the future. As his cultivation base grew, so would his spiritual strength. Absorbing all these books should also go faster. As long as he persevered, he would definitely be able to follow the clues of the 9-star Hegemon body art and find where Lord Brahma and Fallen Day Knight were. Long Chen then returned to his residence to rest. In just a short time, the Unfettered Alliance's people came. That was because they had a lesson every 3 days. Boss San, hello. When Long Chen walked to the arranged place, he was struck speechless by how packed it was. This room that normally only allowed 300 people to enter was now packed with over 2,000 people. What is going on? Demanded Long Chen. Brother San, in order to save time, I've called back all the members of the Unfettered Alliance. Don't worry, we'll pay according to the number of students. We won't let you lose out, said Mu Qingyun hastily. According to the Academy's rules, instructors could only have 300 people per lesson at most. This was to prevent instructors from swindling money by lowering the quality of the lesson. However, if the disciples themselves didn't care about the numbers, then this rule could be ignored. Even so, for over 2,000 people to come was truly too many. According to the standard price of 50 immortal crystals per student, a single lesson would let him earn 100,000 immortal crystals. That was a shockingly huge sum to Long Chen. This instructor profession was truly a money-making profession. Of course, the majority of instructors only had a few dozen students per lesson. At most, they would have 100, as full classrooms were rare. As for something like 2,000 people, that was definitely the first in quite a few years. Mu Qingyun was unwilling to waste any time, and she wanted to raise the unfettered alliance's power as fast as possible. Hence, all the elites had been gathered. Long Chen was speechless. Looking at Mu Qingyun's burning gaze, he knew that she viewed him as an omnipotent existence. She had bet everything on him, and this increased the pressure on Long Chen. Although he hadn't known Mu Qingyun long, his vision was sharp. He saw that Mu Qingyun was going to extreme lengths. It seemed that she was planning on winning or die trying. Alright, due to the numbers, we'll modify the lesson from 4 hours to a full day. But first let me say that I don't like teaching principles or theories. I like to teach through actual combat. All of you should be mentally prepared. If you can't endure it, don't blame me, warned Long Chen. If they wanted training, then this many people would need some extra time. This was essentially giving them 6 classes rather than 1, but Long Chen didn't want to take advantage of them by taking all their money. We will beat the Prime Glory Alliance or die trying, shouted the disciples in unison with soaring morale. Perhaps Long Chen really was touched by their morale. The blood in his body that had been cold for so long finally began to stir. Alright, if you can endure my training, I guarantee that you will beat the Prime Glory Alliance. Feeling stirred up, Long Chen directly made such a promise. Cheers rang out from the unfettered alliance. Today is my first lesson to you. If you want to become a true expert, you cannot be afraid of dying. In the mortal world, when my father trained his warriors, he said that once you set foot on the battlefield, your life is no longer your own, so you must control your fear of death. Cultivation is the same. The day that you set foot into the cultivation world, you either have to be willing to be trampled by others, or you must stake your life in everything that you do. My original goal in cultivation was to allow myself to live with dignity. But later, I made even higher goals, so I had to work even harder. If you don't have a powerful background, if you don't have powerful trump cards, and you still want to stand out amongst your peers, your only choice is to put everything on the line. Study with your life on the line, cultivate with your life on the line, and do everything you can for every chance to get stronger. If you want to change your fate, you must pay a price. To gain without paying? Impossible. Don't believe that you'll encounter some miracle or find some heaven-defying treasure. Let me put it to you this way, even if you do encounter a miracle, you need the power to grab it. Otherwise, you'll only be able to watch it slip away from you. Obtaining a treasure? Without the necessary power, you won't be able to get anything valuable, let alone a heaven-defying treasure. Others will come to kill you and take it. You must be strong enough to grasp these opportunities that come to you. Starting today, I'll have you go through the toughest training. You and you, come over here. Long Chen chose over 400 people from the group. Adding in the elite group, Mu Qingyun, and the others, there were a total of 500. The divine competition that was coming up was going to be fought in max groups of 500. At this moment, Mu Qingyun was excited. Long Chen was helping her create a powerful group for the competition. The 500 people that I've picked out are all those with higher than average talent. You will temporarily be considered the main combat force, said Long Chen. The chosen disciples cheered upon hearing that, while those that hadn't been chosen were dejected. Those that were chosen shouldn't be happy, and those that weren't picked shouldn't be discouraged. Talent doesn't decide everything. There will be a ranking exam for the main force every 10 days. The last 50 ranks will be washed out from the main force, and then the top 50 from the reserves will be chosen to join. As long as you can excel and work hard, you won't be forgotten. I will give every person a chance. But whether or not you can grasp it is up to yourselves. Furthermore, even those that are not part of the main force must still do their best in order to prepare for the next competition. Whether or not the Unfettered Alliance wins or not, Chu Kuang is already at the absolute peak of mortal transcendence. No matter how he suppresses it, he can't stay in this realm much longer. He will definitely advance to the Divine Flame realm. At that time, he will not be qualified to participate in the divine competition for the mortal transcendence realm. That means you won't be facing him as an opponent in the next competition. Even without Qingyun's lead, you should have a high chance of victory, so every person must work hard for the next competition, understand? Said Long Chen. Understood. The disciples that hadn't been chosen shouted with determination. As for those that had been chosen, they became nervous. There would be a ranking every 10 days with the bottom 50 being removed. In other words, 1 in 10 people would be squeezed out. Elite group, split into 2 groups. You're my teaching assistants right now. Help me investigate every person's foundation, said Long Chen. Li Kai and the others were delighted. The 36 of them had actually been promoted to teaching assistants, so they could practically be considered half-instructors. Their status was different than before. In the past, they didn't have anyone's recognition. With Long Chen, though, their lives had changed. They then began training the Unfettered Alliance's disciples the same way that Long Chen had started with them. Their egos were fully satisfied. After going through Long Chen's hellish training, they now found that there was a huge difference between them and these disciples. Despite that, they didn't look down on them in the slightest, because just a month before, they were far inferior to these disciples. If it weren't for Long Chen, they would still be trash simply waiting for death. The elite group began training the disciples. Long Chen then called over Mu Qingyun for some personal training. Brother San, I'm finally attending your class. Mu Qingyun looked at him worshipfully. She was so excited that she was a bit red. All people like to worship the strong, and Mu Qingyun was no exception. She thirsted to be stronger. Even though Long Chen was younger than her and had a weaker cultivation base, Long Chen seemed to possess limitless power. He was fearless. It was precisely due to their close age and comparable cultivation base that she felt that if Long Chen taught her, she would rapidly advance. What weapon are you most skilled in? Asked Long Chen. The sword. Mu Qingyun held her sword confidently. As the number 2 expert on the divine rankings, she had made profound advancements with her sword. Although she was unable to beat the rank 1 Chu Kuang, other than him, no disciple in the outer academy was her match. The sword? I'm not too skilled in the sword, but I have a brother who is an expert of the sword Dao. I've learned some superficial knowledge of the sword Dao from him. It should be enough, said Long Chen after some thought. Brother San, if you say it like that, isn't it? Mu Qingyun's expression changed slightly. These words were truly piercing. He wasn't skilled in the sword, but learning some superficial knowledge from one of his brothers would be enough to teach her? That was too hurtful. If someone else said that, she would immediately turn hostile. But these words were coming from Long Chen. Although she was angry, she didn't want to say anything to retort because she didn't want to insult him. Long Chen looked at her and shook his head. Do you think that I've gone too far by saying this? That's simply because you don't know just how terrifying that brother of mine is. His talent is definitely greater than mine. His killing power is even more shocking. Long Chen was referring to Yu Zifeng. He had always felt great admiration for him. His talent and dedication toward the sword Dao were truly amazing. If Long Chen didn't have the primal chaos bead, the 9-star Hegemon body art, and the pill sovereign memories, he would have no confidence in being able to beat Yu Zifeng. His talent is even greater than yours? Exclaimed Mu Qingyun, unable to believe it. More words are meaningless. If you can receive 3 blows from my sword, I will join the Unfettered Alliance, becoming one of your members and participating in the divine competition. Long Chen smiled. All right, then everyone, bear witness. It's a deal. Mu Qingyun was delighted. Afraid of him reneging, she immediately backed up and took a defensive stance. Everyone else was also excited to hear this. If Long Chen joined the Unfettered Alliance, who would be able to stop them? Long Chen received a sword from one of the elite group's disciples. He then looked at Mu Qingyun and shook his head. I was wrong. 3 moves is too many. As long as you can receive a single blow, it will be your victory. The sound of his sword coming out of its sheath was like a dragon cry. In that instant, a sharp and unstoppable will erupted. Space-time seemed to be sliced apart by this will, and every disciple's soul quivered. As Long Chen's sword fell, Mu Qingyun turned pale. Her sword then fell, broken. A line of blood flowed down Mu Qingyun's forehead, leaving everyone stunned. Big Sister Qingyun. Zhong Ling and Zhong Xiu hastily ran over to Mu Qingyun, checking her injuries. Brother San, what are you doing? Are you trying to kill Big Sister Qingyun? demanded Zhong Ling angrily. This blow from Long Chen was too vicious. There was a thin line from Mu Qingyun's forehead to the bridge of her nose. Drops of blood leaked out, slowly flowing down. Considering that they hadn't even entered the divine flame realm, such a wound could leave a scar that wouldn't fade. Zhong Ling and Zhong Xiu both panicked. This was just a lesson. There was no need to go this far, was there? I'm fine. I was too foolish. My mind was seized, and I wasn't even able to muster the ability to protect myself. I couldn't even block the wind from his sword. Brother San was already merciful, or I'd have died. I, Mu Qingyun, fully submit. I'll never question Brother San again. Mu Qingyun shook her head shamefully. She had been feeling angry that Long Chen would say that his superficial knowledge of the sword Dao would be enough to teach her, and she wanted to retort. She even wanted to embarrass him with this exchange. These disturbing thoughts had caused her to lack the ability to even protect herself, resulting in just the wind from his sword injuring her. Fortunately, the cut was very thin. Drops of blood leaked out, but it wouldn't leave a scar. Long Chen had already shown mercy. At the same time as Mu Qingyun was horrified, she was also fully convinced by his sword. Her reverence for him increased. Brother San, the material of your sword is greatly lacking compared to mine. Why was it able to break my sword without being damaged? Asked Mu Qingyun after dealing with her wound. Long Chen's sword was borrowed from one of the elite group's disciples. Although those disciples all had money, Mu Qingyun's sword was not ordinary. It was several grades higher than the sword that Long Chen was using. It was due to this that Mu Qingyun had not expected his sword to be able to break hers. This attack of his was truly shocking. The elite group's disciples were especially shocked. They had been with him the longest, but they had never seen him use such a divine technique. They felt him to be even more unfathomable. I truly do not specialize in the sword Dao, but I have a brother who has a deep understanding of it. I've asked him about the essence of the sword Dao, and he told me that the sword is the most common weapon in the world, but also the most mysterious. Experts who use swords are as common as grains of sand. But there are only a few who understand what the sword is. He views his sword as his master, creating countless sword arts. However, even though there are endless transformations, they all return to the source. To get stronger, you must become one with the sword in your hand. Your entire heart, must be within your sword. Even if it is just a sword made of ordinary metal, it is still your life, your soul. Use your heart to awaken it. You breathe with it, your heart beats with it. Then you will have reached the first step of the sword Dao. As for myself, I'm not a sword cultivator. I've tried it, but I've only reached the first step. I can feel the pulse of my sword, its breath, its heartbeat. It's a very mysterious feeling. If you understand, then you understand. If you don't understand, then you don't. There is no explaining. Many people tell you that for cultivators, a weapon is an extension of the body. But a sword cultivator does not believe this. They believe that the sword is you. You are the sword. When you can breathe with your sword, when your hearts beat in unison, when your will becomes one with the will the sword, there will be a miraculous transformation. Even ordinary metal becomes unstoppable. Long Chen suddenly slashed his sword behind him. A black boulder behind him was sliced apart. This was a boulder for testing a person's power. It was exceptionally tough. Even a hammer wouldn't leave a single mark on it. However, his sword sliced through it like it was a vegetable. The two parts of the testing stone shook the room they were in when they fell on the ground, proving just how heavy they were. People's jaws dropped. They were unable to close the cut was smooth as glass. As for Long Chen's sword, it wasn't marked at all. Sword chi? Isn't that something only experts in the divine flame realm can achieve? Asked Li Kai. That sword was only 3 feet long. But the testing stone would require several people to wrap around it. It clearly wasn't long enough to cut through it. This isn't sword chi. It is sword light, an extension of the sword's power. Because it is limited, there is no way it can compare to sword chi, said Long Chen. Sword light is the level new initiates to the sword Dao can achieve. Now you should understand that I wasn't lying to you. Heavens, how terrifying. If I could learn this move, wouldn't I be unrivaled? Zhongling stared in shock. What enemy could block such a terrifying attack? Brother San, can you teach us this move? If we learn it, we'll definitely get first place for the upcoming divine competition. Zhong Xiu ran over and pulled Long Chen's sleeve excitedly. In her excitement, she forgot that he was still holding a sword. If he hadn't put away fast enough, her leg would have been stabbed. After all, the sword light was still present on top of it. Boss San, teach us this move. Li Kai and the others' eyes were also shining with anticipation. That attack had been truly stunning. Long Chen shook his head. To master the sword Dao requires an indomitable will that does not bend, a spirit that will not give up no matter what. Amongst all of you, Mu Qingyun is the only one who barely meets the requirements. The rest of you are far too lacking. Continue training according to what I taught you. Temper your wills. Once you meet the requirements, I won't hold back. I'll keep working hard. Li Kai clenched his fist excitedly. Long Chen always kept his sword. They were filled with anticipation for that day. Everyone else was just as excited. Long Chen was now a practically omnipotent existence to them. He was powerful and terrifying. They felt like they had only seen the tip of the iceberg when it came to him. With this to strive for, everyone continued working hard. They were even more serious than before. They had never worked this hard before. Long Chen's attack was just that alluring. Long Chen brought Mu Qingyun to a corner, having her sit with her sword on her knees. She was to focus on feeling the pulse of her sword. Brother San, this place. Mu Qingyun was unable to calm herself in this situation. There was Li Kai and the others shouting nearby. She was unable to feel anything that Long Chen described. If you can't even calm your heart, how will you sense the will of the sword? A sword has no joy, anger, sorrow, happiness. It is not disturbed by outside forces. This is a trial for you. A sword cultivator is solitary and detached. They must be able to maintain a heart of still water at any moment, even when facing death, said Long Chen severely. Mu Qingyun nodded. She continued trying to feel her sword. However, becoming a sword cultivator couldn't possibly be so easy. Even though Mu Qingyun was extremely talented, there was no reaction even after an hour. As for Long Chen, he had slipped away, going to the Pill Institute. Long Chen went to the Pill Institute, or more accurately, the medicinal fields. He quickly found the supervisor from last time. Due to their last interaction, they could be considered old friends now. That supervisor hastily greeted Long Chen. Boss San, you're back. This time, what do you want? Last time, Long Chen had taken some of his medicinal herbs and this supervisor had turned a blind eye to it. In return, Long Chen hadn't exposed his embezzlement of these medicines. Just like this, they had a tacit understanding. Gather some herbs for me. I want fresh ones and one of each. I'll pay you 3 times what the Pill Institute would pay you for them. Long Chen got straight to the point. Boss San, what are you saying? If you want any, just ask. I don't want any of your money, said the supervisor with a cajoling smile. As long as Long Chen didn't make things hard on him, he would already light incense in thanks. Making money from Long Chen? He didn't dare to do so. Go get them. 1 each. It's not much money, and I can't make you work for nothing. Treat it as me treating you to tea. Long Chen waved his hand. He knew that all the supervisors here were connected in their own network. They were familiar with each other's medicinal fields. However, Long Chen couldn't be bothered to go through all the medicinal fields, picking plants one by one. He would rather have their help and save all that time. Hearing this, the supervisor didn't dare to tarry and immediately ran off. 2 hours later, he returned with over 3,000 plants. Boss San, some people that supervise their medicinal fields weren't present, so I can only give you these for now. Take a look. Long Chen curled his mouth. Just from this supervisor's gaze, Long Chen could see that he was probing him. Then take these. There are 13,000 immortal crystals here. Long Chen tossed him a sack. The supervisor was delighted but still put on a modest expression. Boss San, you're making things hard for this little one. Being able to help you is my honor. How could I take your money? Boss San doesn't make others work for free. These immortal crystals are yours. Think of a way to reach those supervisors and get me more plants. I'll return tomorrow, said Long Chen. As he left, the supervisor called out, Boss San, don't worry, even if I have to break my legs running, I'll get them all. After that, Long Chen tossed the plants into the primal chaos space, and the medicinal field inside grew once more. He knew that this fellow had refused to bring out everything because he was worried that Long Chen was only giving him lip service about paying him. If Long Chen didn't pay in the end, he would have suffered a large loss. That was why he had only brought over a few to probe Long Chen. Hence, Long Chen didn't just pay him in return but also gave him some extra. That way, he should be at ease and prepare more for Long Chen next time. Long Chen then went to buy a better pill furnace. His old one was sold back for a discounted price, but he got back 70% of the capital. From this, he supposed that the Pill Institute had some conscience. He spent over 30,000 immortal crystals on a new pill furnace that was of a much higher quality than his old one. But the price was truly painful. Even so, if he wanted to do good work, he needed a good tool. After that, by the time he returned to the training room in the God Institute, half a day had passed. However, Mu Qingyun was still unable to feel the pulse of her sword. Her face was slightly pale. Seeing Long Chen return, she looked up and nervously said, Brother San, am I especially stupid? No matter how she tried, she was unable to feel her sword. That was a large blow to her confidence. For her to become number 2 on the divine rankings showed that she was extremely talented. But that talent didn't help her here. No, I would say that you're just an ordinary idiot, said Long Chen after a moment's thought. Brother San, Mu Qingyun was looking for comfort with that question, only for Long Chen to make it worse. It was just a joke. Don't take it seriously, said Long Chen with a smile. But you're too impatient. Things won't go faster just because you're in a rush. A sword cultivator doesn't depend on talent but on a strong will. The training can end here. Everyone just stop, called out Long Chen. Boss San, aren't we training for a whole day? It's only been half a day, said Li Kai. His face was covered in sweat. Teaching so many people was very tiring, but these disciples were all so dedicated that they couldn't stop. The elite group seemed to have become addicted to the admiring gazes of these disciples. What can be taught in theory has already been taught. Gather up to go to the hunting grounds. Training that poses no danger is too ineffective. Long Chen directly asked for a flying boat from Mu Qingyun. They then formed a hunting party of 2,000 people. The hunting grounds of the God Institute were specifically made for disciples to hone their combat skills. There was definitely a certain level of danger here, but as long as there were enough people and the disciples were careful enough, the chances of death were extremely low. Furthermore, the beasts here were specifically picked and tossed inside. They were all beasts with impure bloodlines, and thus limited combat potential. They were perfect for disciples to train on. However, under Long Chen's guidance, the flying boat passed through this hunting ground. After 8 hours, Zhongling couldn't help saying, Brother San, any further and we'll leave the hunting ground. It will be the wilderness. There will be no formation of the hunting ground blocking more terrifying beasts from appearing. We might be wiped out if we encounter some terrifying existence. The God Institute's hunting ground was on its borders. There was a special formation blocking stronger beasts from entering while keeping the weaker beasts inside. Outside of the hunting ground was a boundless wilderness with countless dangers. It was unknown how many people had refused to heed the warning and entered that wilderness, only to never return. Hence, to these people, it was essentially a forbidden area. No one dared to enter. If you want to become an expert, how can you not face danger? Since you've chosen cultivation, a path of no return, there is nothing to be afraid of, said Long Chen. The barrier appeared in front of them at this time. It buzzed, giving them a warning that any further and they would be in dangerous lands. However, Long Chen didn't stop. He had Mu Qingyun send the flying boat right through the barrier and into the wilderness. All the disciples' hearts clenched once they passed the barrier. They were in a completely unknown world now. The flying boat then continued for half an incense stick's worth of time before a sudden explosion shook it. After that, the sky darkened. The disciples inside staggered and cried out. A giant toad thousands of meters tall had appeared out of some hole. It opened its enormous mouth, and its tongue shot out, wrapping around the flying boat. It then began to pull them inside. The disciples inside the flying boat screamed as the floor beneath them violently rocked. Chen then looked over at everyone. The elite group's disciples were also panicking, but their weapons were in their hands. They were ready for battle. However, the other disciples were all so panicked that they only knew how to scream. Other than that, it seemed that they were simply waiting for death to come. Suddenly, the flying boat lit up as Mu Qingyun activated its defensive abilities. As a result, lightning runes appeared on top of it, making the giant toad shudder. A burst of smoke then came from its tongue, and it let go of the flying boat. Heavens, that was terrifying. I thought we were definitely dead this time. The flying boat flew off. Having escaped the danger, the disciples clenched their chests. However, just as they were speaking, they saw Chen looking at them coldly. They hastily shut their mouths. The flying boat then slowly advanced. Inside, everyone was deathly silent. The atmosphere was extremely awkward. Brother San, we were wrong. Zhongling thickened her face and spoke first with her head lowered. The elite group had spent so many hours doing their best to teach them to keep their calm when facing powerful enemies. The reason was they couldn't be so terrified that they couldn't react. They had to watch their opponent and grasp their chance to fight back. Hence, they thought that they had learned this lesson. But as soon as that giant toad appeared, everything flew out of their minds. Upon facing real danger, their terror and despair automatically appeared. They even gave up resisting. That was why they were so ashamed in front of Chen's gaze. They had even sworn that they had controlled their fear and were ready. Hence, this slap in the face was truly loud. Brother San, you can scold us. Don't just stare at us like this. After an incense stick's worth of time, Zhongling and the others felt numb. Feeling like their souls had crumbled, Zhongling begged him to speak. Chen shook his head and didn't say anything. When the flying boat entered a mountain range, he had Mu Qingyun stop the boat. Mu Qingyun then stopped inside. Just now, she had also been covered in sweat. She wasn't much better than everyone else. Chen finally started speaking. I admit that your previous display made me a bit angry. But when I thought about it, I realized I was asking too much of you. Your lives were too peaceful, and you are different from me back then. I was someone with no background who had to go all out just to survive. As for you, many of you wish to cultivate only to excel, to bring honor to your ancestors, or maybe even just to show off, to be a level higher than others. However, let me tell you something right now. People must be vigilant even in times of peace. The reason you can live like you do today is entirely due to the backgrounds of your families. But you are naively unaware of just how many lives and how much blood were shed in the past to win these peaceful lives. For a power to rise, they must be accompanied by a storm of blood. When a power rises, there will also be countless greedy eyes on them. Do you not have opposing factions? Do you not have enemy clans? If there comes a day that the pillars of your families collapse, what will you do? Will you cry and scream like just now? Simply await your death? Your peaceful lives only exist because people in your families are shielding you from the wind and rain. However, as fellow members of your family, have you never thought about becoming the person that shields your family from wind and rain? Everyone was silent. The reason that they were able to enter the High Firmament Academy was because their backgrounds weren't bad. The elite group's disciples in particular were created from their families piling resources into them. It had to be known that the tuition fee for the academy was not cheap. Just the monthly benefits that they obtained from the academy were unable to keep up with the costs for their cultivation. They also received a large sum of money from their families every year. Hence, Chen's words struck them in their hearts. Could it be that they would waste a lifetime being protected by their families? How was that any different than being useless trash? There is no shortcut on the path to becoming strong. If you want to get stronger, you need to be able to face death. I brought you here because if you don't have that determination to get stronger, half or more of you will be stuck here for the rest of your lives. Think well. It is time for you to face death and become a true expert. If you want, you can also be an ordinary disciple and live a peaceful life. Make sure that you make the right decision for yourself. You still have time now, but when the doors of the flying boat open, if you still regret it, I will personally kill you, said Long Chen harshly. After that, everyone looked at each other. His words gave them goosebumps. Half or more of them would die here. I want to get stronger. Otherwise, if I'm just going to be bullied every day, what is the point of living? I wish to advance. Me too. My father has 10 other sons. He won't miss me. I'm afraid of dying. But I'm even more afraid of dying as a good-for-nothing. I'll bet it all. I bet that if I don't die, Boss San will turn me into a powerful warrior just like the big brothers of the elite group. Everyone had endured anger. Everyone had endured humiliation. Now that they had encountered a master like Long Chen, if they retreated, they would regret it for a lifetime. With the disciples expressing their attitudes one by one, new courage was born within them. Their blood then began to ignite. In the end, not one person retreated. Long Chen nodded. After all, they were young people with youth's vigor. If they didn't even have the courage to be wild as a youth, then there really would be no need for them to cultivate. Good. Since everyone has agreed to stay, let me explain why I brought you here. I read a book that mentioned this place a few days ago. It's called Crescent Moon Valley. 18,000 years ago, there was an immense battle here. The Academy's experts rushed over, but the battle was already over by the time they arrived. It is said that when the experts investigated the scars of the battle, there were signs that a heavenly flame seed gave birth to its own intelligent mind here. There was some beast that wanted to devour it, resulting in a fierce clash. However, no one saw that battle, so no one knows who won. All that remained is a ruined battlefield in the shape of a crescent moon, hence, it is called Crescent Moon Valley. I brought you here because the will of the heavenly flames still remained here. Even after 10,000 years, that aura is still going strong, so this is perfect for tempering your wills. It's the fastest way to make you gain the will of an expert. Furthermore, Long Chen suddenly paused, a fiery light appearing in his eyes. Furthermore, if my deductions are correct, a new heavenly flame seed will soon be born here. That is my ultimate goal. Right now, Long Chen urgently wished to upgrade Hualong's power. Only then could he truly soar. Heavenly flame seed? Mu Qingyun was shocked. Although she was a disciple of the God Institute and not an alchemist, she was well aware of how precious a heavenly flame seed was. In the immortal world, there were immortal flames, divine flames, beast flames, devil flames, etc. But it was heavenly flames that were the most precious existence. These were flames of the heavenly Daos, spirits born of the chi flow of the heavenly Daos. Heavenly flames were priceless treasures that alchemists dreamed of obtaining. Even with the Pill Institute's foundation, heavenly flame seeds were extremely precious. Amongst all the people that Long Chen had encountered so far, only the 7-star elder, Heziyu, possessed a heavenly flame. Brother San, if that heavenly flame seed really appears, we aren't able to subdue it. We'll be incinerated before we even get close, said Mu Qingyun. It's unknown if the heavenly flame seed will even appear. But if it does, it will be in a newly born state with no consciousness. There won't be any danger. Qingyun put away the flying boat. Everyone is to enter Crescent Moon Valley. There are countless beasts here. There are also plenty of poison bugs around. Everyone must be careful, or you might lose your life at any moment, warned Long Chen. Mu Qingyun put away the flying boat. Long Chen led everyone forward slowly. Li Kai brought up the rear with some other experts. After all, their sense of danger and reactions were much better than these disciples of the Unfettered Alliance. This was the only way to guarantee everyone's protection. Suddenly, Long Chen's hand snaked out and grabbed Mu Qingyun's sword. Light flashed. A vine beside Mu Qingyun was severed. That was a poisonous snake camouflaged as a vine. It was killed just as it prepared an attack against Mu Qingyun. A black Fang viper. Mu Qingyun was startled. She recognized this viper. Its poison was horrifying. It had a pair of black fangs. If bit, ordinary antitoxin pills were useless. You would die within a moment of being struck by its poison. Long Chen resheathed Mu Qingyun's sword as if nothing had happened and continued onwards. Zhong Ling and Zhong Xiu looked from Mu Qingyun to Long Chen. That viper had concealed itself perfectly. None of its aura leaked out. But Long Chen had easily killed it before its attack landed. That confidence and ease dazzled them. "Brother San, how are you so amazing? How did you do this?" Zhong Ling ran over to Long Chen's side. "When you understand just how precious your life is, you will be able to do the same," said Long Chen lightly. "I don't understand," said Zhong Ling. "It just means that I value my life more than you. I won't let anyone take it from me. For example, in a place where you can lose your life at any moment, I don't have time to chat," said Long Chen. Zhong Ling finally understood that he was rebuking her for still wasting time asking questions instead of watching out for dangers on their path. She didn't get angry by this rebuke. She ran back over to Mu Qingyun's side, keeping her mouth closed. Ah! A disciple suddenly slipped. Half his body sank into the ground, startling everyone. Others quickly pulled on him. Boom! Li Kai's sword slashed onto the ground. Only then did they manage to pull that person out. There were still tree roots wrapped around his feet. Those roots had been severed by Li Kai's attack. A blood-like liquid dripped out of the cut. "It's a tree demon. Everyone be more careful. If you had been paying attention, you might not have fallen for its attack. There was someone to save you this time, but you might not be so fortunate next time," warned Li Kai. This was a sly kind of tree demon that hid underground. It specialized in laying traps for its prey, which included beasts and humans. It would absorb their flesh as nutrients. "Yes, many thanks, Big Brother Li Kai." That disciple was still pale. He had almost died. There were countless dangers around them. Their nerves were tight. After half a day of travel, the sky started darkening. The forest was shrouded in darkness. The sound of a wild beast would occasionally ring out, raising their hair. "Brother San, the sky has darkened. Shouldn't we find a place to rest during the night?" asked Mu Qingyun. Just walking around here during the day was frightening enough. Now that it was dark, even she was a bit afraid. This place was the wilderness. If something happened here, no one would come to save them. Suddenly, a strange sound came from beneath Mu Qingyun's feet. She lowered her head and jumped up, grabbing Long Chen. It was a skeleton. The flesh had already been eaten by wild beasts. Moss had started to grow on top of the bones due to how long had passed. If Mu Qingyun hadn't stepped on it, they wouldn't have known that there was a corpse beneath them. Mu Qingyun tightly grabbed Long Chen's arm. Long Chen didn't make a sound. He just stood there. It was only after a moment that Mu Qingyun realized that her actions were inappropriate, and she immediately let go, her face as red as an apple. Zhong Ling and Zhong Xiu smiled mischievously when they saw that, causing her to be even more embarrassed. Long Chen slowly knelt down, searching around the skeleton. He found some rotting clothes. There was no way to identify whether it was the robes of someone from the academy. However, he quickly found the status plate near the corpse's waist. He picked it up and looked at it. It's a disciple from the Immortal Institute. Furthermore, it was someone from the outer academy just like us. Mu Qingyun seemed to feel like she had been too embarrassing just now, and brazenly stepped forward to examine the plate. A disciple of the Immortal Institute actually dared to come here? They didn't know their own power. One disciple shook their head, feeling like this person had practically been courting death. Someone who didn't have their own burden wouldn't gamble their life. People who aren't trying are not qualified to mock someone who is risking their life, said Long Chen lightly. Just, Boss San, I was wrong. That disciple hastily apologized. Long Chen tossed the status plate to that disciple. If you have a chance, return this status plate to the Immortal Institute. Perhaps his father, his mother, his brothers, his sisters were all searching for information on where he was during these years. They prayed for him to return, but regretfully, Long Chen shook his head and continued onwards. After that skeleton appeared, a shadow was cast over everyone's hearts. They became even more cautious. The sky turned darker and darker. It reached the point that they couldn't even see their own fingers when they waved their hands in front of them. Long Chen suddenly waved his hand. A spear was thrown into the forest, followed by the roar of a beast. Some rumbling rang out along with some trees shaking. The sound gradually faded as the beast fled. Having been struck by Chen first, it didn't dare to come over. They progressed through the darkness for over 2 hours. Those 2 hours felt longer than a year to them. Suddenly, they felt that the ground beneath them was no longer soft. Instead, it was rock-like. The air was filled with a burning scent. "We've reached the entrance of Crescent Moon Valley. Everyone can rest," said Chen. The majority of the disciples instantly collapsed when they heard that they could rest. They fell to the ground, feeling limp. Traveling for 2 hours in the darkness at maximum tension had pushed them to their limit. As soon as they relaxed, they felt like they couldn't even move. Only a bit more than 500 people were able to stay standing. They were exhausted but still had some energy, unlike the others who had overdrafted themselves. Most of these people were the ones that Chen had picked out for the main force. Hence, Mu Qingyun, Zhong Ling, Zhong Xiu, and the others practically prostrated themselves toward Chen's sharp vision. After a moment of rest, Mu Qingyun took out the flying boat. The disciples with energy then crawled up, while some were already unconscious and had to be carried by the disciples of the elite group. Li Kai was the most enthusiastic about this work. He was the first to kindly carry a disciple on his back up the flying boat. When he passed Chen simply looked at him, not saying a word. Helping people is its own pleasure. Chen's gaze made Li Kai feel a bit uneasy, but he still spoke confidently. "When you go out into the world in the future, don't tell people that I taught you this shamelessness," said Chen disdainfully. Mu Qingyun, Zhong Ling, and Zhong Xiu laughed. Li Kai was carrying a female disciple on his back. Although it couldn't be said that he was taking advantage of her, it also couldn't be said that he was being completely pure-hearted. "Yes, helping people really is its own pleasure. Just looking at your face is proof," laughed Zhong Xiu. Seeing that his thoughts were easily seen through, Li Kai lowered his head and hastily carried people up the flying boat. It was only once everyone was on the flying boat and the doors were closed that people finally felt at ease. The flying boat had its own defenses. At the very least, they wouldn't have to worry about being eaten. However, they didn't turn on any lights for fear of drawing over any terrifying beasts. Within the wilderness, not even flying boats were completely safe. In the darkness, it took less than an incense stick's worth of time before people began to fall into a deep slumber. Their mental strength had been used up on this journey, and sleeping was the best way to recover. Chen sat against a wall, and Mu Qingyun was on his left. As for Zhong Ling and Zhong Xiu, they were like cats curled up on his right side. After a while, it seemed that they were uncomfortable in their sleep, and they ended up using his leg as a pillow. In the darkness, Chen then saw something glinting. There was a line of saliva dripping out of Zhong Ling's mouth. No wonder this girl spends all day giggling. This innate, mouth like a torrent skill must have been passed down from generation to generation. Chen shook his head. Beside him, Mu Qingyun laughed. She was only a bit tired and was much better off than the others. "Brother San, you really are a curious person. You can make people laugh or cry with a single word. When you want to, you can seem warm and safe, but you can also seem possessed by the devil to the point that people don't even dare to look into your eyes," whispered Mu Qingyun. Perhaps it was due to the darkness, but at this moment, she dared to say the words in her heart. Everyone else was asleep. Only she and Chen were still awake. Within this black space, this atmosphere was a bit beguiling, so without being aware of it, she blushed slightly. Her heartbeat quickened. "Brother San, I've never heard you talk about your past. Are you willing to share it with me?" "I'm very curious about your past," whispered Mu Qingyun. "There's nothing worth saying. It was just fighting and killing. There's nothing interesting about it." Chen shook his head. Mu Qingyun was disappointed. She knew that this was his way of tactfully declining. It was also a kind of rejection. Mu Qingyun was a female expert. Even under Chu Kuang's suppression, she had not submitted as she had her own pride. Although she had bled countless times on her cultivation path, she rarely cried. However, just these simple words from Chen were enough to make her eyes red. Fortunately, it was dark, so she did her best to adjust her mental state, not wanting Long Chen to notice. "Have you ever fallen in love with someone before?" asked Long Chen suddenly. This sudden question caught Mu Qingyun off guard. She shook her head. "Not in the past." Long Chen thought about it and then said, "Loving someone is like a bird flying in the air willingly chosen to confine itself in a cage, a cheetah binding itself with chains, a hedgehog letting its quivers be taken." What does that mean? To love someone is giving them the power to hurt you when you put down your guard. You break your own wings and give up your ability to run. It means to stand by their side and face 100 deaths without regret, 1,000 tribulations without hesitation. Long Chen sighed, his voice heavy with grief. He thought of the pill fairy, of her words. She had spent 1,000 lifetimes, 1,000 reincarnations calling to him just to awaken him. Every reincarnation, she died in front of him. He would never be able to repay her. Although Long Chen still didn't know his own identity, the gaze that the pill fairy had given him right before her death made him feel the unforgettable love she had for him, a love that endured multiple lifetimes. Now she had reincarnated again, but he had no idea where. If she had reincarnated, due to the difference in space-time, would there be some oddities in the passing of time? Would a day here be half a year where she was? In any case, he felt uneasy about it. It had been over 2 months since he had ascended to the immortal world. However, his cultivation base didn't really improve that much as he was with these greenhouse flowers. There was no current crisis, yet that made him worried. He had to get stronger to find his family. Mu Qingyun silently mulled over Long Chen's words. Just now, she almost cried because Long Chen wasn't willing to reveal his past. Was this a warning? Don't easily fall in love with someone. You can treat me as your big brother, a close big brother. Perhaps that will make it easier for us to get along. In the darkness, Long Chen patted Mu Qingyun's shoulder. He realized that Mu Qingyun already started to have some feelings for him. Hence, he had to throttle these emotions while they were just sprouts. It was because his heart was riddled with holes, so he couldn't accept these feelings. He could face an army of thousands and slay millions of devils. He could look down arrogantly on the rest of the world, but he didn't dare to touch the thing called love again. Fortunately, these feelings were still hazy and indistinct in Mu Qingyun. Hearing that Long Chen could be her big brother, she felt much better. Just like that, she wrapped around Long Chen's arm and fell asleep with a content smile. When the sun silently rose, Long Chen called everyone awake and prepared to move out. When they woke up, Li Kai suddenly realized that there was something in front of him. It was a bowl of soy milk. Hence, Li Kai was moved and looked around. Don't get so emotional. Someone won't treat you so well just because you carried them once, said Long Chen. Then who was it? Asked Li Kai. It was me, said Long Chen. Boss-san, you treat me so well? Li Kai was even more moved. Teach, you were grinding your teeth so loudly at night that I had to stuff some beans in your mouth to keep you quiet. You made the milk yourself, so you can drink it, said Long Chen irritably. They had been too exhausted to even hear such a thing at night. They probably wouldn't have woken up even if thunder boomed right above their heads. At this moment, Li Kai's embarrassed expression made them laugh. I was wondering why my mouth felt fishy, mumbled Li Kai. After a night's sleep, everyone was refreshed. They then walked down the flying boat. Looking through the forest, they felt like the colors were more vibrant than yesterday. Does the world feel different? Asked a disciple. They were unable to tell exactly what was different. Long Chen said, it is because of the improvement in your mental strength. The constant threat of death stimulated your mind. At the same time as you look at the world, your mind automatically activates, giving birth to mental energy. This mental energy will then sharpen your sense of danger. Although it's still very weak, it might be able to save your life at a critical moment. This explanation delighted everyone. They had made such an improvement in just a single day. If they continued like this for a month, wouldn't they only grow even more powerful? Don't get carried away. Boss San told us that this kind of benefit is only for novices. Because you haven't experienced anything like this before, it has the best effect the first time you experience it. The effect won't be as obvious the second time and onward. Well, Boss San won't be using the same method for you once it loses effect. Things will only get harder, but you'll also make more gains. If you want to get stronger, grit your teeth and persevere, reminded Li Kai. Back then, Li Kai and the others had also gone through this and knew what these disciples were thinking. It went without saying that Li Kai was a very successful teacher's aide. He knew what to say at the right time. After breaking down their unrealistic ideas, he also gave them hope, making them realize that the path in front of them was even harder but also filled with unimaginable benefits. They had already gained so much just by following Long Chen for a day. That was an addicting feeling. After walking out of the flying boat, they saw that there was a giant canyon in front of them. The forest ended here, and not a single blade of grass grew within the canyon. It was all black stone with a faint scorching heat coming from within. It looked strange and desolate. We'll continue in the same formation as yesterday. Let's go, said Long Chen, leading the way into the valley. Compared to how on edge they were yesterday, the entire group was clearly better off today. Seeing that her group had improved so much in just one day, Mu Qingyun's eyes shone with excitement. You're the leader. A leader must maintain an air of mystery. If your emotions are written all over your face, you won't have a leader's style, said Long Chen with a smile upon seeing the beaming Mu Qingyun. After yesterday's talk, Long Chen felt a bit closer to Mu Qingyun. However, it was different from the feelings between a man and woman. Mu Qingyun seemed to truly view him as a big brother, so Long Chen no longer needed to be so careful around her. With Brother San present, I don't need that, laughed Mu Qingyun. Long Chen nodded. All right, it's time to increase your power. Here, take this medicine. Long Chen tossed Mu Qingyun a little bottle. Mu Qingyun then asked, what is this? But even as she asked, she was already drinking the medicinal liquid inside. It's bitter. Mu Qingyun shivered with the taste. It felt like it was stuck in her throat. Good medicine tastes bitter. This medicine was specifically made by me for you, but its effect is rather slow. You'll feel it later. Long Chen continued leading the way. Only once they were deeper did everyone find that this valley was absolutely gigantic. They couldn't see the end. All they could see were stones that had been scorched black and emitted a metallic shine. It's getting hotter. As they advanced, people started to feel like they were being broiled. They began to sweat. They touched the rocks but were surprised to find that the rocks were actually cool. They didn't know where this heat was coming from. This is the will left behind by the heavenly flame. It directly roasts the person's soul. The heat you feel isn't real heat but a misperception. 18,000 years ago, a powerful heavenly flame seed was born here. It already had its own spirit and began to transform. Its power was unimaginable. After that, a terrifying beast wanted to devour it, so the two fought. This place is the edge of their battlefield. Once we reach the core, your souls will feel like they are being baked. You might see illusions or even heart devils. Remember to protect your heart and not be disturbed, warned Long Chen. As expected, after another hour, some disciples turned pale. Their eyes became scarlet. Long Chen gave them some medicinal liquid to alleviate their symptoms a bit and then continued onward. Brother San, Mu Qingyun suddenly spoke up, her voice quivering. Don't get emotional. Continue feeling it. Mu Qingyun was finally sensing fluctuations from her sword. Just as Long Chen had anticipated, there were flame runes carved into Mu Qingyun's sword. It was a fire attribute sword. In this place, where a heavenly flame seed had been born, the sword sensed the flame energy and its fluctuations became clearer. As for the medicinal liquid that he had given her before, it was to temporarily boost her mental strength. Hence, for her to finally sense the fluctuations of her sword was natural. Eventually, some disciples could no longer endure. They began to talk nonsense, and there were even signs of them going insane. Long Chen had everyone pause here, and those disciples gradually calmed down. After 2 hours of rest and letting everyone get used to this place, they pressed onward. They repeatedly stopped on the way before finally arriving at the core of the valley. There was a giant cave opening in front of them. Long Chen then walked over and suddenly squatted down, his expression changing slightly. Someone else arrived before us. Brother San, how do you know? Asked Mu Qingyun. I can sense the auras of other people, said Long Chen. The 9-star Hegemon body art was very sensitive to these auras. Although his abilities had been limited after entering the immortal world, he could still sense this. Was someone else also after the heavenly flame seed? Long Chen started to have a bad feeling. He had found this information from one of the historical texts he had read. That book hadn't been read in hundreds of years. According to reason, no one should know. Everyone come with me. Be careful. Try not to make any noise, ordered Long Chen. They carefully entered the cave. As soon as they entered, a dense heat washed over them, so Hualong's image on Long Chen's arm lit up. They quickly arrived at a large cave with dozens of pathways to choose from. It was like a maze. Long Chen closed his eyes and sensed where the flame energy was the strongest. After that, he led everyone to the right. Boss San, I don't feel very well. My head is splitting. It's like something was set on fire, said one disciple painfully. He was dripping with sweat. Endure it. This is the burning will of the heavenly flame, and it won't cause any real damage to your body. This is a tempering for your will. The longer you can endure, the more it will benefit you. When you can no longer endure any longer, your body will automatically make you pass out. But let me tell you, once you pass out, you won't benefit from it any longer. You'll only have this one chance. Next time you come here, there won't be this kind of effect. If you want to become strong, grit your teeth and endure, said Long Chen. Boss San, I understand. That disciple clenched his teeth, bitterly enduring the pain of his soul and continuing onward. This underground cave was pitch black, except for the occasional dark red glow from the walls as if it was being heated. However, when touched, it was ice cold. The will of the heavenly flame grew more intense the further they went, to the point that even Zhong Ling, Zhong Xiu, Li Kai, and the others found it taxing. As for the ordinary disciples, they were holding their heads, clenching their teeth. Some people were clenching their teeth so hard that they spat out blood. However, they still persevered. Long Chen suddenly paused and took out a sword. He slashed the wall. The thin stone wall with the thickness of a palm was cut open. After that, it revealed a large space behind it. Within this space were over 10 lantern-like glowing objects embedded into the wall. Heavenly flame orbs. Mu Qingyun cried out in shock. Heavenly flame orbs could be likened to the companion ores of heavenly flame seeds. They possessed their own powerful flame energy and were rare treasures even in the immortal world. Even before Long Chen could get a close look, Hualong flew out and swallowed those heavenly flame orbs into its stomach. Mu Qingyun and the others jumped in shock. It was only when Hualong returned to Long Chen's arm that they realized that this flame dragon belonged to Long Chen. These heavenly flame orbs were extremely beneficial to Hualong, able to increase its power by quite a bit. Although it wasn't as good as the heavenly flame seed, at least they hadn't come for nothing. Back then, Hualong had refined a single heavenly flame orb, and it had taken a long time. Now it devoured them in almost an instant, and its power rose sharply. At the center of this room was a stalactite. Long Chen walked to the bottom of it and saw a fist-sized spirit crystal. This is heaven's heavenly flame source, exclaimed Mu Qingyun. This was practically a legendary existence, something that gave birth to heavenly flames. Who would have thought that they would stumble upon one today? It's no good. The heavenly flame source has only formed recently. It still hasn't gained the recognition of heaven and earth. If we take it now, this spiritual treasure of the world that takes millions of years to form will be destroyed. Long Chen sighed and shook his head. Even so, if you take it, its value will be shocking. If you give it to the academy, you'll be able to get countless resources, said Mu Qingyun. Doing so is far too wasteful. Legend has it that such spiritual treasures have their own destinies. It hasn't matured yet, so it means its master hasn't come yet. If we take it forcibly, it will incur karma. Although I'm already surrounded by bad luck and don't mind adding on some more, destroying such a spiritual treasure will aggrieve me. Let's go. Tens of thousands of years from now, this fruit will be ripe for the picking. Leave it to the one with destiny to it. Having taken the heavenly flame orbs, Long Chen knew to be content with what he had. He touched the heavenly flame source, sighed, and then led everyone away. Long Chen sealed the entrance, making sure there was no sign that they had broken the wall. Although some disciples were tempted by this treasure, for someone as fearless as Long Chen to give up on it made them not dare to think about taking it. They continued on their way, with Long Chen guiding them. They didn't even remember how many twists and turns they went through before they reached the end. Long Chen had found another spacious room and gained more heavenly flame orbs. He had now gained over 50 of them, so Huolong was growing increasingly powerful. Let's stop here. The will of the heavenly flame is growing too powerful. You probably won't be able to endure it. Rest here. As long as you can make sure that you don't fall unconscious, you'll benefit immensely. If someone does faint, use an ice needle to pierce the human center acupuncture point. That will wake them up. Don't miss this chance to rapidly improve. As novices, you can make rapid advancements that won't be possible in the future. Such a thing won't happen again, warned Long Chen sternly. Yes. Everyone hastily sat down and worked hard on keeping their minds clear, resisting the scorching of their souls. Long Chen looked at Mu Qingyun. You are different from the others. This heavenly flame is unable to threaten you, so you should take the initiative in absorbing that remnant aura to broil your soul. Then transmit your pain and helplessness to your sword. Closely feel how its emotions change in response. Try to form a resonance with its spirit. Brother San, are you leaving? Asked Mu Qingyun. Yes. Someone else came first. My guess was very likely correct, and a new heavenly flame seed has been born. I need to fight for it. It's incredibly important, so I will leave this place to you, said Long Chen. Mu Qingyun had an urge to say that she would accompany him, but then she thought that she would only slow him down. Staying here was better. Long Chen's arms bulged as he picked up a giant rock. He then sealed this space so it looked like a dead end from the outside. After arranging this, he returned to his original path and followed a different path. His pace quickened. As he was rushing, he suddenly paused. Huolong told him that it sensed powerful flame energy. Long Chen rushed down another passageway. In the end, he saw the light of a fire. That was where the flame energy was densest. However, he then heard metallic clashing and the sound of furious shouts, so Long Chen lightened his footsteps and snuck over. He was then dumbfounded by what he saw. Luo Bing, let me see how you two sisters end up dying. An arrogant and familiar voice entered Long Chen's ears. Long Chen peered through a crack in the rocks, and there was a large spacious area up ahead. Half of this space was lava, and there was a small stone island within the lava with a stone pathway leading to it. At this moment, hundreds of experts were surrounding the two women. The leader of those experts was Chu Kuang. Beside Chu Kuang were many faces that Long Chen had never seen. However, all of their auras were very powerful. They were wearing robes of the God Institute's disciples, but they were a bit different compared to Li Kai and the others' robes. Inner Academy disciples. Long Chen suddenly recalled that these were the robes of the Inner Academy. Chu Kuang had actually brought out a group of Inner Academy disciples. Luo Bing and Luo Ning were surrounded. At this moment, Luo Ning clenched her sword, glaring at Chu Kuang with overflowing killing intent. Chu Kuang, you bastard, I didn't expect you to follow us, spat out Luo Ning through clenched teeth. Ha, how naive. The Chu family has eyes throughout the High Firmament Academy. What can possibly escape us? My eyes lie even amongst the people by your side. None of your movements can escape me. What? Has your heart finally been won over? Chu Kuang laughed arrogantly like he was looking at prey caught in his trap. Ruxin is your spy? Luo Bing's expression suddenly changed. Hee, count yourself smart. Now you understand. Although she looked to have an enmity as deep as the sea with me, she had long since come to my bed. How laughable that you were fooled the entire time. This time, you've left yourselves with no way out, laughed Chu Kuang. That bitch. I viewed her as a sister, and she actually betrayed me. Next time I see her, I will definitely cut off her head. Raged Luo Ning. The Ruxin she spoke of was their most trusted confidant. When the two of them left, only she knew of it. But that was what had resulted in their current plight. Betrayal was the most painful thing. You won't have that chance. Even together, both of you aren't a match for me. Now with this many inner academy disciples here as well, there's not the slightest chance of you getting away. Furthermore, you didn't expose your tracks to anyone in order to keep your movement secret. Rushin only knows that you go out and not what you're doing. No one will save you. Hee, but don't worry, I won't kill you. I'll make sure that you're captured alive, so I can properly play with you afterward. Ha! Chu Kuang and the other disciples beside him sneered at them filthily. The academy had its rules. But since this place was not the academy, there were no rules for them to respect. The Ying Prefecture's Luo family? Long Chen suddenly clapped his forehead and stared in shock at Luo Ning and Luo Bing. They were actually from the same family as his mother. As for Chu Kuang, he had to be from the Shung Prefecture's Chu family. At this moment, Long Chen didn't expect this world to be so small. In the vast immortal world, he had actually encountered people from his mother's family here. He grew a bit emotional. If this was the case, then he would quickly obtain information about his mother. Ning. Luo Bing slowly placed her hand on the back of Luo Ning's head, her voice quivering. Her eyes grew wet. Big sister, I'm not afraid. I won't lose the face of the Luo family, said Luo Ning staunchly. She had no fear. She knew that Luo Bing intended to kill her to avoid her being captured alive. At that time, her life would be worse than death. Compared to her big sister, Luo Ning's combat power was still lacking. Hence, Luo Bing would kill her and then go all out against Chu Kuang and the others. Every person she dragged down with her would be a bonus until she had no choice but to also kill herself. Unfortunately, Luo Ning was too weak. If a battle started with these people, she might not even have the ability to kill herself when the time came. If there is another life, let us be sisters again, Luo Bing closed her eyes. She was just about to do it when a voice rang out. If the two of them together aren't a match for you, what if you add me in as well? Everyone was startled. They turned to see a black-robed Long Chen walking in with a smile. It's you! Chu Kuang and the others were surprised. No one would have imagined that Long Chen would suddenly appear here. However, after a moment of shock, Chu Kuang actually smiled. He waved his hand, and over 10 more people appeared from behind some rubble, blocking off Long Chen's retreat path. Chu Kuang could be said to be truly cautious. Other than the people he had shown off, he even had some hidden backups just to prevent Luo Bing from escaping. It was a final line of defense that should have never been required, but now they gave Long Chen no chance of escaping. However, Long Chen didn't even look at them. He had long since noticed Chu Kuang's arrangements, so he continued walking over. That smile on his face was extremely bright. It was his first time being so happy in the immortal world. It felt like the clouds had parted. It really is a case of the heavens opening a path for you, but you still barge through the locked gates of hell. Long Chen, I admire this courage of yours. Are you trying to be the hero saving the beauties? It's too bad that you overestimate your power, sneered Chu Kuang. You're wrong. I'm not just going to be the hero saving the beauties. I'm going to take all the treasures here as well as slaughter a few people for fun, said Long Chen. He looked at the disciples and the surroundings and indifferently said, Boss San's mood is good today. I'll give you a chance. If you don't want to die, then hurry up and scram. Haha. Laughter rang out from each of them, and they looked at Long Chen like he was a fool. Are you an idiot? Do you not see our cultivation bases? Sneered one of those inner academy disciples. You are referring to the fact that you've ignited your divine flames? Long Chen cast his gaze at that disciple and then shook his head. In my eyes, you are all ants. Even slighter bigger ants can only be trampled. There is no difference. Long Chen had arrived before them. Hence, they opened up their enclosure and closed it behind him. As for Long Chen, as if he didn't even notice them, he walked over to Luo Bing and Luo Ning. Chu Kuang didn't bother stopping him either, allowing him to enter. By walking in, he was giving up his last chance to escape. Long Chen walked right up to the two of them and smiled. I'm here to save you. You, why bother? Luo Ning was moved, but she knew that Long Chen couldn't do anything against so many experts that had ignited their divine flames. There's nothing else I can do. I've been toppled over by the immortal looks of two beautiful women, so I have no choice but to come out. Let me tell you a secret, I wasn't trying to walk so slowly just now. My legs are actually sore, and I was worried that I would trip if I went any faster, whispered Long Chen solemnly. Although he switched to a whisper midway, everyone heard him clearly. Luo Bing then stared at him in bewildered confusion. Was this person a fool? Just die. Who wants to hear you talk? One of the disciples suddenly took out a sword and slashed at Long Chen's back. Long Chen chuckled. All right, we'll go with what you said. Without looking back, Long Chen suddenly bent over, his body twisting. His hands swung out in a graceful arc. After that, his hands slapped that disciple's face perfectly. As a result, half of his head caved in, and he was blown back, falling into the lava. The disciple screamed in pain when he fell into the lava. His clothes and hair were instantly ignited. Seeing him struggle crazily, one disciple reacted quickly and tossed out a rope. Grab on! The disciple then grabbed it just above his head. He was pulled out, but when he was out, everyone couldn't help inhaling a cold breath of air. Everything below that disciple's chest had vanished. However, that disciple didn't even seem to notice this. Thinking he was saved, he had an ecstatic expression. It was only when he tried to stand that he realized his predicament. No! Although he had ignited his divine flame, he didn't have the power to regrow his body. Hence, he would quickly die. He began to wail, but no one could save him. They could only watch as he died. You're really cruel. Long Chen shook his head and sighed sorrowfully. What nonsense! You're the one who did this. How are we the cruel ones? Cursed one disciple. The others were just as enraged. Long Chen dared to act like some good person after doing this? I did this. If you hadn't interfered, he would have died within the warmth, returning to the embrace of nature. But you? You looked like you were saving him, but you were harming him, letting him see hope before once more flinging him into absolute despair. If you really wanted to help him, you shouldn't have saved him. I even suspect that you have some deep enmity with him and were using this cruel method as revenge. Sigh, I can't bear watching. Long Chen turned his head away. Bullshit. The disciple that had reacted so quickly was enraged. He had clearly saved his comrade out of the kindness of his heart. When did he ever have malicious intentions? That disciple suddenly screamed. The person with only half his body left had suddenly grabbed his legs and bit down on his calf, tearing off a chunk of flesh. Zhang Zhuo, you bastard, just because I played with your girl, you treat me like this. I won't forgive you. That disciple roared furiously and bit down on his leg again. You've gone crazy. Enduring the pain, Zhang Zhuo tried to push the dying disciple off. But with death in front of him, the latter erupted with all his power, refusing to let go. In just a moment, Zhang Zhuo's leg was left a bloody mess. Finally, the enraged Zhang Zhuo slashed that disciple's neck. A headless corpse fell, but his head remained attached to his leg, still biting on a chunk of his flesh. Wow, how vicious! You even strike a friend who is on the verge of death. Long Chen shook his head sadly. That person peeled the head off of his leg, tearing off another piece of his flesh. Hearing Long Chen fanning the flames to the side made him explode. Die! He furiously attacked. A rope appeared in his hand and flew out like a python aiming for Long Chen's neck. This rope was covered in barbs. If it landed on Long Chen and he pulled, let alone a body of flesh, even rocks would be torn apart. It was an extremely rare type of weapon. However, just as the rope was about to reach Long Chen, a hand covered in dragon scales caught it. As you wish. Long Chen pulled. As a result, that person's body was involuntarily lifted into the air. Accompanied by countless shocked cries, he fell into the lava as well. Save me! That person cried out. He had just ignited his divine flame and couldn't fly. Thinking of the previous disciple's plight, he almost fainted. Long Chen agreed and waved his hand again, pulling him out. As a result, Just like the last person, only half his body returned. The rest vanished within the lava. Long Chen, you murderer, you won't have a good death. Knowing that he wasn't long for this world, that person cried out in anger. You really don't know how to talk. You were the one who asked to die. I was only doing what you wanted. Then you asked someone to save you. I pulled you back. Now what? It really is hard being a good person. Long Chen sighed and shrugged helplessly. Fuck your good person. That person actually slammed his own hand on his head after he finished cursing, killing himself. 2 inner academy disciples who had ignited their divine flames died just like that. Everyone else still didn't even understand what was happening. Behind him, Luo Ning and Luo Bing were delighted. Although Long Chen had yet to reveal his true power, 2 experts who had ignited their divine flames were toyed by him to this extent. He was definitely a true expert. Although Luo Bing also possessed the power to fight across realms, Long Chen wasn't even fighting right now. He was playing with them. Chu Kuang's side was shocked and infuriated. They had never imagined that Long Chen would appear here. Furthermore, he seemed even more frightening than the rumors. 2 of them had attacked but couldn't even make Long Chen reveal his true power before losing their lives. Moreover, Long Chen's calm indifference gave them chills. Although they were all experts who had killed before, the way Long Chen killed so calmly made them afraid. For them, that kind of calm was faked. After all, no one could kill their fellow humans without feeling something. However, Long Chen's gaze seemed completely apathetic. It was terrifying. Chu Kuang, no need to probe me. You might be able to hide your power in front of others, but not me. You want to play the pig to eat the tiger? It's meaningless. No matter how you play or fake it in front of me, you will always be a pig. Long Chen's gaze gradually sharpened when he looked at Chu Kuang. Now his gaze was like a sharp sword. In that instant, his aura began to change. This was his first time unleashing his battle intent after entering the immortal world. That was because out of everyone here, only he could see through Chu Kuang's true power. For Long Chen, Chu Kuang was the only expert in the same realm that was worth fighting here. Empty arrogance. Go kill him together. Chu Kuang sneered and waved his hand. Kill! The inner academy disciples charged forward together. Seeing this scene, Luo Ning and Luo Bing raised their swords, but Long Chen waved his hand at them. The 2 of you don't need to join in. Just protect yourselves. Long Chen stepped forward, appearing amongst those disciples like a phantom. With a slash of his sword, 3 weapons were shattered, and 3 heads flew into the air. Blood rained down. A sword cultivator! Startled cries rang out. For Long Chen to be able to shatter weapons on the same level so easily, he could only be a legendary sword cultivator. Sword cultivators were inconceivable existences even within the immortal world, said to possess the greatest offensive power. When those 3 were killed, the other disciples felt the chill. No one had expected Long Chen to be a terrifying sword cultivator. The High Firmament Academy had a Sword Dao Institute. But sword cultivators were too rare, so the number of the old and young members of the Sword Dao Institute together was only a few hundred. Furthermore, sword cultivators were usually aloof and kept a distance away from the rest of the crowd. Sometimes the disciples of the Sword Dao Institute wouldn't step outside for years or even decades. However, their position was definitely extremely high. It was said that they received practically whatever resources that they wanted. If Long Chen was a sword cultivator, he should have directly joined the Sword Dao Institute. Why had he run to the God Institute, which was practically destitute in comparison? However, they didn't have time to think too much. Long Chen was sweeping through their midst like a phantom. As soon as he killed 3 people, he swept out his sword, a sharp light coming out of it. That was sword light, a power that only sword cultivators could unleash. One disciple was unable to dodge in time, but he also didn't dare to face Long Chen head-on. In a rush, he took out a shield. With a light sound, half of that shield fell to the ground, and then half of that disciple's body fell along with it. Long Chen's sword had sliced him in 2 along with his shield. Don't be afraid. Sword cultivators have weak bodies. One heavy blow and he'll die. shouted another disciple. The fatal weakness of sword cultivators was just as well known as their terrifying offensive power. Boom! That disciple hadn't even finished speaking before a giant hammer struck Long Chen in the back. However, without turning back, Long Chen smashed his fist behind him. The hammer was sent flying, while the attacker's arms were broken. He hacked up blood. What? Now everyone was dumbfounded. How could a sword cultivator also possess such a powerful physical body? Was he a sword cultivator or not? In an instant, 8 people were killed by Long Chen, and their corpses were tossed into the lava. The others began to run. All of a sudden, a blood-colored saber whistled toward Long Chen, and he raised his sword to block. As a result, sparks flew and the entire cave shuddered. Chu Kuang had finally joined in. His saber's runes shone brightly. This was a powerful weapon. Long Chen, be careful. It's a spirit weapon, warned Luo Ning. Spirit weapons. They were extremely precious and possessed terrifying destructive power. Normal people weren't qualified to possess them. Their name came due to them possessing their own spirituality. Only experts who had ignited their divine flames could activate that spirituality. But somehow, Chu Kuang was also capable of it. Long Chen, although your power has somewhat exceeded my expectations, remember my words. No matter how strong you are, it's not enough in front of me. Chu Kuang pressed down with his saber, his aura growing. How interesting. It seems that you are very confident. I feel like I've seen through your power, but you feel like you've seen through me as well. However, my confidence is real, while yours is fake. So today, you're the one who's going to lose. Long Chen remained indifferent even as he received Chu Kuang's increasing power. Chu Kuang sneered, I don't even know how many confident idiots like you that I've killed. I like your expressions the most just as you realize that you're about to die. Are you talking about yourself? If you really were confident, you wouldn't conceal your power. Your Chu family really is trash. You were only able to rise again due to betraying your master. After rising, in order to conceal what you had done, you completely devoured the entire bloodline of your master. Did you think that eating up an honorable family tree would cover up your beast-like actions? The blood of despicable animals flows within your Chu family. Just your gaze is enough for me to see your sinisterness, your despicableness, your craftiness, as well as the cowardice and inferiority you feel deep in your heart. For you to be able to so unashamedly say such big words at this time really is amazing. You managed to train your facial skin into such a thick wall, mocked Long Chen. Luo Ning and Luo Bing were startled. Long Chen was aware of the history of the Chu family that they had done their best to cover up. It had to be known that the Luo family's people all knew the Chu family's history in order to understand the deep enmity that lay between them. However, very few outsiders were aware of the Chu family's matters. After all, the Chu family had long since erased any history that didn't show them in a good light. What they didn't know was just the number of historical texts that Long Chen had read. The Chu family's history wasn't his main reading topic. He only learned about them from the history of the Ying Prefecture's Luo family. Some fragmentary comments also taught him about the despicable things that the Chu family had done. On the other hand, Long Chen couldn't find anything like that in the Luo family's history. This showed just how strict the Luo family's teachings were. They didn't do things that couldn't be revealed to others. The fact that they disdained beautifying their own history gave Long Chen a good feeling about the Luo family. Although his mother came from the Luo family, he wouldn't automatically be on their side just because of it. Just like how he was surnamed Long and detested the Long family, he had his own principles. What drivel! You dare to blaspheme my Chu family? I will turn you to dust. Long Chen's words seemed to have touched one of Chu Kuang's nerves. At this moment, his eyes turned red, while centipede-like lines appeared around his eyes and spread throughout his face. His blood qi erupted like a wild beast had awakened. Also, his saber rumbled intensely as if it had been woken up as well. An overwhelming power then poured out of his saber. Upon seeing this, Long Chen's heart shook, and he twisted his sword to force the saber aside. A ray of light then shot out of the saber toward some of the disciples. That sharp saber light tore through those disciples in an instant, killing them. It then struck the wall, leaving a deep cut in it, making fragments of stone rain down. Luo Ning and Luo Bing were both shocked by what they saw. Luo Bing cried out, "Long Chen, be careful. He possesses the Chu family's bloodline divine ability. His spirit weapon is a bloodline spirit weapon. Combined, he can unleash unlimited power." Just at this moment, the lava behind Long Chen exploded, and a fiery heat washed over everyone. "It's finally drawn out." Long Chen was delighted. A heavenly flame seed was about to show itself. Heavenly flame seed. Even Chu Kuang was startled. He had only come here because he was following Luo Ning and Luo Bing. He had no idea about the history of Crescent Moon Valley. Luo Ning and Luo Bing were also caught off guard. 1 year ago, they had learned about the existence of Crescent Moon Valley. The first time they came, they noticed a foot-long flame seed floating within the lava. Delighted by the discovery of the heavenly flame seed, especially one that hadn't gained sentience yet and was in its weakest state, they wanted to take it. However, as soon as that thought appeared, the heavenly flame seed seemed to sense the danger, and it submerged into the lava. The two of them waited 3 days here back then, but it didn't appear again. Hence, they temporarily left. Once they returned to the academy, based on the color of the seed, they spent a long time researching possibilities and concluded that it was the Scarlet Spirit Flame. It was ranked 573 on the Heavenly Flame rankings. It was known to be gentle and meek, one of the easiest heavenly flames to obtain. This delighted the two of them. Just half a year ago, they had bought a special flame net just for the purpose of obtaining the heavenly flame seed. By using flame divine runes to conceal their auras, they could easily get closer to it and then succeed in using the net to capture it. Regretfully, they had ended up startling the heavenly flame seed in the process. It struggled and actually escaped their flame net. The two of them were dismayed by this as they were even struck by fire poison. They then returned to the academy once more, resting in preparation for trying again. However, Luo Bing ended up fighting Chu Kuang in the academy and being injured. She had been recuperating all the way until now. This time, the two of them had spent a large sum in order to buy a large number of supportive items. They had to succeed this time and take the heavenly flame seed away. Unfortunately, Chu Kuang had ended up tailing them, and they had fallen for his trap. At this moment, when they sensed the heavenly flame seed's aura, they were shocked to find that its aura had completely transformed. It was full of brutality and murderous intent. What they didn't know was that as soon as Long Chen arrived here, Hua Long had sensed the heavenly flame seed below the lava. However, it hid in the lava and refused to come out. Luo Bing and Luo Ning had repeatedly disturbed it, causing it to grow more sensitive to human auras. Furthermore, Chu Kuang had led so many people as well, and they hadn't concealed their auras from it, which resulted in the heavenly flame seed refusing to come out. Due to this, Long Chen had thrown these divine flame experts' corpses into the lava. They had ignited their divine flames. These flames would slowly extinguish when they died, but by tossing them into the lava, these flames ended up becoming bait. The heavenly flame seed stealthily devoured the power of one of the disciples' divine flames and was instantly hooked. That was because it was branded with the emotions of that human. This heavenly flame seed was originally a spirit condensed by the flames of the heavenly Daos, a spiritual treasure of heaven and earth. Its body was pure like white paper. If no one touched it, it would slowly absorb more essence of the world. Over millions of years, it would come to possess its own will and become a supreme existence. However, having devoured a human during the process, its purity was ruined. This was why the best timing to capture a heavenly flame seed was while it was still like a pure white paper. However, Long Chen had still thrown in those disciples, using their divine flames as bait. Hence, the heavenly flame seed quickly became violent and greedy. There were dozens of corpses on the ground whose divine flame seeds had yet to extinguish. It wanted to devour them all. When the lava exploded, Luo Bing and Luo Ning hastily dodged. A 3-meter-tall lion had appeared within the lava, and it suddenly roared, shaking this cave. Its legs stamped on the air. Flames appeared beneath its feet. It actually ran through the air, charging at Long Chen and Chu Kuang. After that, it opened its mouth, unleashing a wave of fire with such a wide range that it even affected Luo Bing and Luo Ning. The two of them were shocked. They hadn't expected the Heavenly Flames seed to be able to transform so quickly. Based on their research, it should have taken hundreds of years before it transformed. What they didn't know was that this was not a true transformation. It could be considered a kind of forced adaptation. Those people's divine flames had stimulated the Heavenly Flame seed, causing it to create a battle state for itself. Luo Ning and Luo Bing formed hand seals, summoning a translucent barrier. But they had no confidence in whether or not this barrier would be able to block these flames. Behind them was more lava, so they had nowhere to retreat. However, as soon as they summoned the shield, their waists tightened. Long Chen had grabbed both of them and fled with them. The two of them cried out in shock. Long Chen was dragging them into the lava behind them. However, they were even more shocked when they saw Long Chen running across the lava. He didn't sink. Long Chen quickly managed to bring the two of them to shore. Only then did they recover from their shock. Luo Bing blushed at the close contact. She didn't know whether she should thank Long Chen or push him off of her. She was still wondering which to do first when Long Chen let go of them. Hide at the exit. It would be best if you didn't let Chu Kuang escape. I will see whether or not it's possible to kill him here. Long Chen was already charging back into the sea of fire ahead of them. At this moment, the corpses on the ground were incinerated, and their divine flame seeds had been devoured by the flame lion. After devouring all those divine flame seeds, it became even more violent and pounced at Chu Kuang. Chu Kuang was enraged by this attack. He then hacked his saber down, blowing the lion back. However, Chu Kuang also didn't have it easy. This flame lion was a heavenly flame seed, so he felt his blood almost boil, like he was going to be set ablaze. He would only be able to receive a few more attacks like that. After forcing the flame lion back, Chu Kuang turned to run. However, at that moment, a sharp sword came slashing down at him, forcing him into a hasty block. As a result of his hasty block, Long Chen sent him flying straight toward the flame lion. The flame lion was already charging back, becoming a pincer attack with Long Chen. Boom! Chu Kuang was struck by one of the flame lion's claws. As a result, his whole body was covered in flames. His clothes and hair were ignited. Die! Chu Kuang roared furiously. At this moment, the lines on his face instantly spread, covering his entire body. His aura soared. Boom! The flame lion was sent flying with a slash of his saber. The saber image almost split the sea of lava in two. In his berserk state, Chu Kuang managed to blow back the flame lion. After that, countless runes lit up on his saber as he attacked Long Chen. Long Chen frowned when he looked at Chu Kuang. He then shook his head, and lightning appeared beneath his feet. In the face of Chu Kuang's all-out attack, rather than blocking, he chose to dodge. Boom! Chu Kuang's saber ended up slashing onto the ground, sending stones flying in every direction. A large ditch was left in this tough ground. Coward! Aren't you arrogant? If you have the guts, receive one of my attacks, roared Chu Kuang, once more charging toward Long Chen. Boom! Lightning flashed beneath Long Chen's feet once more as he dodged. Chu Kuang was unable to lock down Long Chen. After that, Chu Kuang furiously unleashed 7 blows, while lightning continued to flicker beneath Long Chen's feet. Although every one of Chu Kuang's attacks was incredibly close to Long Chen, they were still missing by just a little bit, unable to injure him. The way that Long Chen was dodging so closely made Luo Ning and Luo Bing's hearts pound just by watching. They hadn't expected Chu Kuang to be concealing himself so deeply. Before this, Luo Bing had thought that Chu Kuang was only slightly stronger than her, and there was an aspect of luck in her defeat. Now she understood just how great the difference between them was. She also thought of how many times Ruxin had leaked Chu Kuang's movements outside the academy to her, encouraging her to go kill him. After thinking of that, sweat dripped down her back. Chu Kuang truly was sinister. He had intentionally made himself appear weak to bait her out of the academy and kill her. If it weren't for multiple accidents occurring, causing her to not go, perhaps she would have fallen for his trap. Chu Kuang wasn't as brainless as his name made him seem. He actually schemed so deeply. Do we go help him? Seeing that Chu Kuang was so powerful that Long Chen couldn't even counterattack, Luo Ning grew anxious. If Long Chen was struck by one of those attacks, they would be truly defeated. Chu Kuang has already activated his bloodline power. We can't even get close to him as we'll only cause trouble for Long Chen if we go. However, Chu Kuang cannot maintain such a furious tempest of attacks. Once his aura drops, we can attack together and possibly kill him, said Luo Bing. She was clearer on the Chu family's foundation. Chu Kuang couldn't maintain this bloodline power for long considering that he still wasn't in the divine flame realm. Although it looked like Long Chen was at a disadvantage, his movements were still stable. While it looked like he was only narrowly dodging every move, he did it skillfully and easily. It seemed that he was waiting for his opportunity. Boom. Just at this moment, the flame lion that Chu Kuang had blown back returned. Chu Kuang's attacks seemed to have infuriated it. Aiming at Chu Kuang, it opened its mouth and unleashed a flame sword. Chu Kuang was infuriated. Why did this lion not go bite Long Chen, or even Luo Bing or Luo Ning? That was because of Chu Kuang's powerful divine flame seed. It hadn't been ignited yet, but it was even stronger than the divine flame seeds of all the disciples that the flame lion had just devoured combined. Furthermore, Chu Kuang's attacks had further provoked it. Considering its low intelligence, with this provocation, it would only crazily target him. All of this was within Long Chen's calculations. He didn't know that this was the Scarlet Spirit Flame, but he had a feeling that as long as he did this, it would attack Chu Kuang. His intuition was always accurate. Boom. Long Chen rapidly retreated, leaving Chu Kuang to deal with the flame lion's attack by himself. As a result, when it struck, Chu Kuang hacked up blood, and his entire body was charred. He screamed, "The fragrance of meat has appeared. Do I need to give you some cumin and pepper?" Long Chen smiled in the distance. "Long Chen, just you wait." Chu Kuang was enveloped by flames. That terrifying attack left him in sharp pain. He wasn't even able to extinguish these flames right now. If he focused on extinguishing them, that would give Long Chen a chance to attack. That might cost him his life. Hence, borrowing the force of the flame lion's attack, he rushed into the distance. "Take care." Long Chen didn't chase him. Instead, he amicably waved to send him off. This was his way of telling Luo Ning and Luo Bing not to block him. Chu Kuang was truly crafty. He fled while still possessing most of his combat power, and he refused to take the risk of falling into danger. Luo Bing and Luo Ning were unable to stop him in this state. If they tried, they might be the ones to die. With Chu Kuang having fled, the Scarlet Spirit Flame had lost its target. It seemed that it could only cast its anger on Huolong, who was in Long Chen's body. "Bind." Long Chen smiled and extended a hand. The next moment, Huolong flew out of Long Chen's arm and wrapped around the Scarlet Spirit Flame. "Get in." After Long Chen formed a hand seal, the Scarlet Spirit Flame and Huolong vanished. With Huolong's help, the Scarlet Flame Spirit was drawn into the Primal Chaos Space. In the Primal Chaos Space, it no longer possessed its precious berserk rage. Instead, it became docile, not even daring to move. Long Chen smiled. As expected, the Primal Chaos Bead was always the winner. Once something was sucked inside, he would be its master. The Scarlet Spirit Flame didn't move. Huolong tightened its hold on it, and its runes slowly flowed into Huolong's body. Long Chen clenched his fists. He hadn't expected this endeavor to go so smoothly. He had obtained a heavenly flame. In other words, his alchemy was instantly upgraded, and he also had a new terrifying trump card. "Long Chen, are you all right?" Luo Bing and Luo Ning ran over urgently. "I'm fine." Long Chen shrugged and smiled. Of course, he was fine. Chu Kuang hadn't even managed to graze his clothes. "Thank you for saving us. We will definitely remember this favor," said Luo Bing. If Long Chen hadn't come, the two of them would have definitely died. There was even the danger of being captured alive and humiliated. That would be a life worse than death. "You're too courteous." I've always found Chu Kuang to be dislikable. Since the enemy of my enemy is my friend, We can be friends in the future, the kind that won't betray the other even in death. Long Chen extended his hand. Luo Ning and Luo Bing were members of his mother's family. From their eyes, he felt like he could trust them. Long Chen's smile was very infectious, like a sunny youngster. It made them feel an urge to trust him automatically. Luo Bing looked at Long Chen in surprise, not expecting Long Chen to trust them so easily. This was forming an alliance with them. When she thought of the intimate way he had held the two of them, she blushed slightly. However, his gaze was clear with no impurities. They saw his open and candid nature. Luo Bing expelled those distracting thoughts and grasped hands with Long Chen. His hand was strong and warm. Just as her heart trembled ever so slightly, Long Chen let go. This was merely a formality. When shaking hands with a woman, it was best to not hold on too long, or there would be suspicion of you taking advantage of the woman. There's me as well. Luo Ning also extended her hand, but contrary to Luo Bing, she shook his hand enthusiastically. Good brother, if you need anything in the future, just ask. Long Chen laughed. How many women dared to call him good brother? It seemed that there hadn't been more than a few, even including the martial heaven continent and the immortal world. Can you two wait a moment? There's something I want below the lava. I'll be right back. Long Chen dived into the lava just like that as Luo Bing and Luo Ning cried out in shock. Flames wrapped around Long Chen like protective clothing. Hua Long was already in control of a bit of the Scarlet Spirit Flame's power. With this protection, he didn't fear the lava here. He dived down. The bottom was at 300 meters. Here, he spread his divine sense, allowing him to see things within several meters. He quickly found a stone egg. This stone egg was the size of a human. It was just like a goose egg. There were countless runes on top of it. The lava around it twisted and turned. This is the companion ore of the heavenly flame seed. Long Chen was delighted. His intuition was correct. As soon as he saw this egg, knowledge about it entered his mind. It was as if he had originally known these things, but so much time had passed that he was unable to recall them. But when something appeared to trigger them, he remembered. Long Chen grabbed the egg. A light sound came from below. It was like something down below had broken. He pulled it into the primal chaos space and looked down. There was a flower-shaped throne below the egg. It was what had given birth to this companion ore. Long Chen snapped off the ore, and a tiny little bead slowly condensed on the throne. When the companion ore was taken off, a new one was born. However, it was tinier than a grain of sand right now. For it to grow to the old size would take tens of thousands of years. This companion ore could be considered the food of the heavenly flame seed. It absorbed the energy of the ore to grow. When the companion ore's energy was exhausted, it would crumble. Then a new ore would be born in wait for the next heavenly flame seed. The heavenly flame seed was born from the heavens. The companion ore was born from the earth. First the companion ore appeared, drawing the power of the heavenly Daos to condense a heavenly flame seed. This term, companion ore, was something that people had called it from the start. It was unknown who started this, but it seemed to go against the proper order of who was first. No one knew why people continued to call it that. The companion ore's energy was the foundation of the heavenly flame seed's growth. Once Hua Long finished refining the heavenly flame seed, it could then absorb this companion ore's energy, strengthening it further. It could be said that Long Chen's gains this time were truly immense. Long Chen looked at the throne next. It absorbed the power of the earth to give birth to the companion ore. If it was taken, the power within would probably be around the same level as the actual companion ore. However, once it was taken, there would never be another companion ore born here. There would never be another heavenly flame seed here. Long Chen shook his head. Although he didn't care about some curse from the heavens, ruining such a natural wonder wasn't worth it. The lava surged as Long Chen flew out. Luo Bing and Luo Ning had already grown a bit anxious waiting for him. Sorry for making you wait, said Long Chen. His mood was particularly good right now. As long as you're all right, it's fine. Luo Bing smiled. I should apologize. This heavenly flame seed is, to me, said Long Chen. This heavenly flame seed was first found by Luo Bing and Luo Ning. Now it had fallen in his hands. If it was something else, he would probably return it to them. But this heavenly flame seed's significance was far too great for him. No need. We would have died here if it weren't for you. Even if Chu Kuang didn't come, it's unknown whether or not we would have been able to capture it this time. There would have been danger either way. We won't hold this against you, so don't worry, said Luo Bing. Luo Bing was already beautiful, but when she smiled, it was like a flower blooming. Long Chen grew a bit foolish when he looked at her. He wondered if his mother looked like her. He only knew that her voice was soft and gentle. His feelings towards his mother grew stronger. Seeing him staring at her so intently, Luo Bing blushed and turned away. Hey, Long Chen, do you not know how to talk? My big sister and I take you as a brother. Are you planning on seducing my big sister? Demanded Luo Ning, waving her hand in front of Long Chen. Ning, you're a woman. How can you talk like that? Chided Luo Bing. She also had no way to handle her little sister. Her way of talking was so direct that it was too much. Long Chen was embarrassed. Staring at her like that was truly wrong. Sorry, I was reminded of something else when I saw you. I hope you won't take offense. This apology now made Luo Bing a bit embarrassed. She didn't know what to say to alleviate this awkward atmosphere. Long Chen, why do we feel a strange closeness with you? What attribute is your immortal seed? Asked Luo Ning. This so-called mortal seed referred to the spirit root after transcending mortality. It could be considered a transformation of the spirit root. There were all kinds of attributes: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, find, lightning, light, dark. Some complemented each other. Some suppressed each other. It was possible for similar elements to feel closer, which was why Luo Ning asked this. Long Chen smiled. It has nothing to do with the immortal seed. The reason we feel close might be because we will be part of the same family in the future. The family that he referred to was his mother's family that they were also part of. But the two of them were unaware of that. Who would have thought that Long Chen would say something so explicit? Seeing Luo Bing flush, Long Chen instantly realized that he had misspoke. But now he didn't know how he should explain himself. Right now, he still couldn't expose his identity. One reason for that was because according to his information, his mother had had a falling out with her father, causing her to run to the lower plane where she fell in love with Long Zhantian and gave birth to him. Whether or not his status would be recognized by the Luo family was still unknown. The other thing was that if he did reveal who he was, if that information spread, it would not be favorable to him. After all, he hadn't killed Long Outyen. Long Outyen would report what he knew to the Long family of the immortal world. If Long Chen's status was revealed now, it might draw endless hunters. Becoming a family is no problem, but you had better be prepared. The Luo family's women don't marry out. If you want to marry in, it's possible though, said Luo Ning very magnanimously. Ninga, scolded Luo Bing. How on earth could she speak about such a topic so shamelessly? So there's such a thing? Long Chen smiled. There wasn't before. But over 20 years ago, something happened in the family that enraged the family head. After that, the Luo family's women weren't permitted to marry out. Luo Ning shrugged indifferently. What happened? Asked Long Chen, his heart pounding. Luo Ning said, the family head's daughter dash. Ning, how can you randomly discuss the family head's matters? Have you forgotten the family's rules? Shouted Luo Bing. Long Chen's heart pounded like a drum. He had a feeling that the person that the two of them were talking about was his mother. Luo Ning stuck her tongue out at Luo Bing, but she was grateful. The Luo family's familial teachings were very strict. She had almost committed a grave crime. Long Chen, I apologize, but the Luo family's matters really can't be exposed to outsiders. Please forgive us, said Luo Bing. It's fine. That's completely understandable. In any case, we're now firm allies. We can face the Chu family together, said Long Chen. He knew that he couldn't rush the matter with his mother. Luo Bing and Luo Ning couldn't just trust him to the point of telling him such things. If his mother really was the Luo family head's daughter, then she should at least be safe. It was his father's fate that was more worrisome. But there was nothing he could do about it in his current state. Since we're allies, I have to warn you. Chu Kuang is not easy to deal with. It's not just him. Many parts of the academy have the Chu family's influence soaked into them. The God Institute's higher-ups in particular have the Chu family's people, said Luo Bing. Really? The High Firmament Academy simply allows the Chu family to stretch their claws into their management? Long Chen couldn't help frowning. Was the dean of the academy an idiot? The waters of the High Firmament Academy run very deep. No one is actually clear on its true power. As for the dean, he hasn't revealed his face in thousands of years. He has always been an unfathomable existence. Furthermore, the interior of the academy seems to be in disorder. No one knows what the higher-ups are thinking by not dealing with it. In any case, the Chu family's influence in the academy is very strong. But even we are unsure just how far their claws stretch, said Luo Bing. If the Chu family is so powerful here, aren't you at a great disadvantage fighting him in the academy? Asked Long Chen. The Luo family are mortal enemies with the Chu family. Wherever the Chu family's disciples appear, the Luo family's people will appear as well. This is an enmity with no rest. Within the academy, everything must be done according to the rules, so even the Chu family doesn't dare to break them. If they are caught, there will only be trouble for them. Anyway, the Luo family also has some power within the academy, so it's not a one-sided battle. We play this game according to the rules. Once an opportunity is grasped, one side will devour the other side's pieces. Just now, the two of us were almost devoured due to our carelessness, sighed Luo Bing. This time had truly been dangerous. They had been too careless. Chu Kuang had truly concealed himself well, acting brainlessly arrogant just to make them underestimate him. He was like a viper waiting for a moment to strike and kill his prey. Long Chen nodded. The Luo and Chu families' enmity had already reached the point that it was part of their blood and soul. There was no rest until death. If the Luo family retreated from the academy, it would be like admitting defeat. It was due to this that the Luo family continued to lie in wait in the High Firmament Academy for an opportunity to strike back despite their inferior position here. You were all tricked by Chu Kuang. With your power, there is a huge gap compared to him. He has always been disguising himself as a pig to eat the tiger, said Long Chen. Luo Bing nodded. It's true. No one had thought that Chu Kuang would be so powerful when he went all out. The two of us would probably be unable to last even 10 moves against him. No, you're wrong. He did not reveal his full power today, said Long Chen. What? Luo Bing and Luo Ning were both startled. Even with that much power, it wasn't all of Chu Kuang's power. Today, Chu Kuang revealed at most 70% of his full power. It might even be less than that. Although I really look down on him, I must admit that he's strong. He's also crafty. I even intentionally used the Heavenly Flame Seed to provoke him into revealing his full power, but he still refused, said Long Chen. Just how great was Long Chen's battle experience? He had been keeping track of just how much Chu Kuang had been holding back. This fellow truly knew how to endure. He was not a wild idiot like he appeared to be normally. If he really held back that much, then only 90% of his power would have been enough to suppress the Heavenly Flame Seed. He might even be able to capture it. Why did he run? Asked Luo Ning. Long Chen smiled and didn't say anything. Inside, he thought that if Chu Kuang really dared to use 90% of his power, then he might not be able to escape afterward with his remaining energy. He truly is powerful. Shouldn't we inform the family that we need reinforcements? Luo Ning looked at Luo Bing. Luo Bing shook her head. This generation's registration has already ended. The Academy's rules are set in stone, so they won't be accepting more disciples until the next generation. If we ask to use other channels to get the geniuses of the family in, the family head would definitely reject it. He will not permit something that will tarnish the family's face. Long Chen couldn't help curling his mouth. The Luo family clearly didn't want to use a back channel. For example, something like what he had done, becoming a worker just to become a disciple. They would consider that embarrassing. Long Chen, don't misunderstand. Luo Bing instantly realized what Long Chen was thinking. He had been in a rush and had used an unorthodox method to enter the academy. It's fine. I've never cared about something like status. There are no shortcuts to the path of cultivation, and there is no higher or lower path. As for me, I don't do things like slapping my own face to make it look bigger. Long Chen shook his head. Long Chen did not fully approve of the Luo family head's methods. Arrogance was not something to show to others. It was something to keep within you. Those who assumed an air of arrogance were always viewed by Long Chen to be concealing their own feelings of inferiority. Then what do? We can't beat him ourselves, exclaimed Luo Ning worriedly. We can only temporarily endure. Once we enter the inner academy, we'll link up with the other experts of the family. Then we can come up with a plan, said Luo Bing after a moment's thought. That's right. Long Chen, don't fight Chu Kuang head-on in the future. Don't give him a chance to kill you, warned Luo Bing suddenly. Kill me? Long Chen was first confused, but he then smiled. It's fine. He can't kill me. Luo Bing's expression turned serious. Long Chen, I know that you're very powerful. However, you can't possibly know just how immense the Chu family's power is. Chu Kuang is so powerful right now. Once he enters the Divine Flame realm, he will be unrivaled in his realm and can easily fight across realms. You cannot be careless. A genius like Chu Kuang must have countless resources invested in him. Who knows how many trump cards he has? You will be at a disadvantage in a head-on fight. Long Chen's power was something that Luo Bing had just witnessed. But during the fight, Long Chen hadn't dared to face Chu Kuang head-on and only dodged. Since that was the case, Luo Bing felt that Long Chen was one level weaker than Chu Kuang and might die to his hands just for face. Are you able to kill people during the divine competition? Long Chen didn't reply, instead asking his own question. If the opponent shouts that they concede, you must immediately stop. But if they don't say anything, killing them will only result in a light punishment. So I'm worried that then I'm at ease. Long Chen nodded and smiled. Luo Bing and Luo Ning sighed with relief, mistaking that smile's meaning. They still didn't understand the character of Boss Long San. Long Chen lifted with his arms, and the giant boulder was pushed aside. Luo Bing and Luo Ning were then shocked to see the Unfettered Alliance's disciples inside of the cave behind it. This cave was now filled with people seemingly on their last breaths. They lay strewn throughout the room, almost like they were dead. Brother San, amongst all of them, only Mu Qingyun was barely able to stay awake. However, she had long since reached her limit. Her gaze was unfocused even as she looked at Long Chen. When she saw Long Chen, she let out an extremely quiet cry and slowly collapsed. With a flash, Long Chen appeared beside her, grabbing her. She then rested her head on his shoulder. Looking up at him, she smiled. Brother San, I didn't disappoint you. You did well. For you to be able to endure this long completely surpassed my expectations. But you still can't fall asleep. Maintain your consciousness. When your essence, chi, and spirit are all exhausted, all that's left to keep you going is your will. Falling unconscious is a kind of compromise with yourself. It's lowering your head. You've already endured for this long, so keep going. Your energy will quickly recover, and your mental realm will reach an entirely new level. Stand with me slowly. Use your will to move your powerless body. Let your energy reignite throughout your body. Long Chen slowly helped Mu Qingyun up. She has already severely overdrafted her power. If you force her like this, her foundation might be harmed. Luo Ning couldn't help giving a warning. It's fine. I have my calculations, said Long Chen. Mu Qingyun had absolute trust in Long Chen. Relying entirely on her will, she tried to move her body. When she was standing again, she felt the world spinning around her. She almost fainted. However, she gritted her teeth, forcefully enduring. After several breaths' time, the feeling of dizziness slowly faded, and she gradually began to be able to feel her weak body again. An incense stick's worth of time later, a bit of rosiness returned to her pale face. These two are? Once she recovered, she noticed Luo Bing and Luo Ning. She suddenly cried out, These two are the alliance heads of the Immortal Institute. Mu Qingyun had met Luo Ning before. However, with the enmity between the God Institute and the Immortal Institute, they didn't have any relationship. It was only later that she learned that Luo Ning was the second in command of the Immortal Institute's #1 alliance, while the true leader was her big sister. Seeing Luo Bing, Mu Qingyun instantly guessed her status. I am Luo Ning. This is my big sister Luo Bing. Luo Ning gave a quick introduction before looking at Long Chen. Long Chen, you're not very sincere. If you want to marry into my Luo family, how can you go around randomly seducing other women? Ning, have some propriety. Luo Bing dragged Luo Ning behind her. This little sister of hers was sometimes infuriating. She always spoke without thinking. Mu Qingyun then looked from Luo Bing and Luo Ning to Long Chen. Coming to a realization, she looked at Long Chen with hidden bitterness. Brother San, you want me to be your little sister because of them? Long Chen rolled his eyes. How had such a thing resulted in jealousy? Don't talk nonsense. I'm good friends with them, but I see you as a real little sister. Although he hadn't known Mu Qingyun for long, he had a certain understanding of sword cultivators. He didn't want any romantic feelings to occur between him and Mu Qingyun. If such a thing occurred, her life would probably be ruined. Hearing this, Mu Qingyun smiled. They were friends, but she was a sister. The degree of familiarity was made clear. Luo Ning was about to interject when Luo Bing covered her mouth. Ning, don't mess around. Think of a way to save the others. Luo Bing gestured to the disciples that were strewn about. They all looked to be on the verge of death. Don't touch them for now. Let them wake up naturally, said Long Chen. Brother San, what happened? Everything was going well, but then the will of the flames suddenly multiplied, almost incinerating our power. Our physical power, our bloodline power, our spiritual power, they were all incinerated. We endured as best as we could, but it was too strong. We couldn't last. I remembered your words to endure, so I suppose I managed to last until you returned, but Mu Qingyun still felt some fear toward what had just happened. Originally, they had all been enduring the broiling of the remnant will of the heavenly flame. But when its power suddenly soared, it instantly became like a hellish torment. It was due to the heavenly flame seed causing a resonance throughout the cave system. It increased the pressure you were under. But I trust that everyone's mental realms will have advanced after such a tempering. It will be even better than what I anticipated, said Long Chen. The heavenly flame seed had been taken by him, so the will of the heavenly flame here was starting to fade. An hour later, Li Kai and the others began to awaken. When they awoke, they were incredibly weak. But Mu Qingyun had already recovered. In terms of the mental realm, she had taken an extra step compared to them. She then looked at Long Chen with increasing reverence. Everyone else looked like they had been struck by a serious illness, but she hadn't fainted and had leaped to a new level. Because of this, in her eyes, Long Chen had reached the level of omnipotence. Even Luo Bing and Luo Ning were surprised by Mu Qingyun's transformation. This practically toppled common sense. She had clearly severely overdrafted her energy, so how did she recover so quickly? Furthermore, Long Chen seemed to have expected such an illogical phenomenon. When Li Kai and the others woke up, Long Chen had everyone immediately stand and prepare to leave. Boss San, can you let us rest for a while? I feel powerless. Li Kai almost cried. His body was almost numb. It didn't even feel like his own body. Don't be daft. Hurry up. If you're too slow, you won't even have your life afterward, urged Long Chen. Hence, everyone did their best to walk out. Once they were out of the cave system, Mu Qingyun took out the flying boat, and they sped off. However, they didn't go far. They stopped on a concealed mountain top and activated the flying boat's concealing formation. From here, they could clearly see Crescent Moon Valley. Long Chen, what are you doing? Asked Luo Ning. Are you waiting for Chu Kuang to come back? Guessed Luo Bing. Long Chen nodded. With Chu Kuang's character, he probably won't give up just like this. He should immediately gather his forces and return. He knows that it takes some time to take a heavenly flame seed. As long as he's fast enough, he'll have a chance to stop us. Look, he's here. Long Chen suddenly pointed. Through the formation, they clearly saw a group rushing straight toward the heart of Crescent Moon Valley. He's flying through the air. It's a 4-peak realm expert. Luo Bing couldn't help sucking in a cold gasp of air when she saw the elder at the front. Above the mortal transcendence realm was the divine flame realm. Only once you ignited the divine flame could you use magical arts and divine abilities. However, not everyone was instantly capable of using magical arts upon entering the divine flame realm. Most ordinary disciples could only start using their magical arts in the mid-stage when they had accumulated enough divine energy. The disciples that Chu Kuang had brought with him this time might have been in the divine flame realm, but they were in the early stage, so they were unable to use divine abilities. They could only be considered one level stronger than disciples at the peak of mortal transcendence. Experts like Luo Bing and Luo Ning were able to fight many of their numbers. That was why they had been killed so easily. However, this did not signify that divine flame disciples were weak. Once their divine energy was strong enough to use magical arts, disciples in the mortal transcendence realm would have great difficulty fighting across realms. Above the divine flame realm was the even more frightening 4-peak realm. As for why it was called the 4-peak realm, Long Chen had not managed to read any texts pertaining to that. All he knew was that the easiest way to recognize 4-peak experts was that they were able to fly through the air. The group that Chu Kuang was bringing over this time had an elder flying through the air. His face was strange. It was like he was wearing a human mask and didn't want to reveal his true face. Chu Kuang really is vicious. He even managed to utilize an elder-level expert. If we were still inside the caves, we would have been doomed, said Luo Ning. Long Chen, if you knew that he would return, why didn't you hurry up? Any slower and we would have been caught. Long Chen had actually been in the mood to chat with them after taking the heavenly flame seed. He had been completely unhurried, but he seemed to have expected Chu Kuang to return. Although his prediction was accurate, this was too dangerous. What if Chu Kuang had returned just a moment earlier? Wouldn't they have died miserable deaths inside? Long Chen shook his head and smiled. Since I dared to bring the unfettered alliance out, then considering that all their lives have been entrusted to me, how could I not arrange for their protection? Unlike the rest of you, I killed my way out of countless dangers in the lower world. One mistake might have cost me everything. That's why I rarely put myself in actual danger. I set up multiple barriers on the path here. If anyone or any powerful beasts pass through, it will immediately alert me. Long Chen revealed a palm-sized formation disc. This alarm system cost me over 20,000 immortal crystals. I kept track of Chu Kuang leaving and his return. There are over 10 barriers to sense people passing through, so I was very clear on how far he was. I don't rely on luck to live. The reason I could live until now is because I'm afraid of dying enough to be careful. In truth, coming out this time had been dangerous due to how big their movement was. Long Chen's main concern had been Chu Kuang learning of it and arranging to attack them in secret. After all, there were too many members of the Unfettered Alliance. For Chu Kuang to have eyes inside of it was very normal. But unexpectedly, Chu Kuang's focus had been on Luo Bing and Luo Ning, so he hadn't had time to think of them. However, these arrangements that Long Chen had set up ended up being useful anyway. Crescent Moon Valley faced the academy, so Chu Kuang wouldn't possibly go all the way around considering that he was in a rush. Furthermore, he definitely didn't expect Long Chen to have set up sentries in hidden places. Hearing this, Luo Bing, Luo Ning, Mu Qingyan, Li Kai, and the others were all amazed. It seemed that Long Chen had everything under control. Through the formation, they watched as Chu Kuang led hundreds of people to seal the exit. These experts were all in the mid-divine flame realm, with some being in the late stage. All of them were in a combat-ready state. Chu Kuang was shouting something, but they could only see what he was doing through the formation. They couldn't hear him, but they could guess that he was telling his men not to let a single fly past them. The current Chu Kuang was hairless, and his face was covered in bloody burns. This was the wound left behind by the heavenly flame, so it couldn't be healed immediately. Furthermore, even if he could heal it, his hair wouldn't grow out that fast. After shouting at them, he and the elder entered the cave system with just over 10 people, most likely to search for Long Chen and the others. Let's go. If they find that we're gone, they might search the surroundings and find us, said Luo Bing once the four-peak expert was gone. Leave? No, it's not over yet. Let me invite you to watch a good play, said Long Chen. Everyone was startled. But seeing that Long Chen didn't seem to want to explain, they simply quietly watched. Time passed slowly. Luo Bing and Luo Ning looked at each other, feeling a chill run through them. Long Chen seemed to be brewing some kind of trap. After that, a full incense stick's worth of time passed without anything happening. The silence was a bit scary. Even the disciples guarding the exit were starting to grow impatient. Why was it that nothing had happened after all this time? Hee hee, Long Chen suddenly laughed, his laughter sounding a bit sinister. Mu Qingyun and the others looked at him in confusion, but before they could ask what was happening, an explosion shook the land beneath their feet. At the center of Crescent Moon Valley, where the cave was located, red flames exploded out of the land and into the heavens. It was a giant pillar of lava. The force of the explosion sent those disciples flying, but the lava then flowed toward them like a tide. Scared out of their wits, they fled. They didn't know what just happened. Had a volcano exploded? One disciple was flattened by a flying boulder that struck him like a meteorite. Any fragment of him was instantly incinerated without a trace. How can this be? Luo Bing covered her mouth, staring in horror. She looked at Long Chen, only to see him smiling like a wily fox that had stolen a chicken as he watched these disciples fleeing for their lives. The raging lava quickly covered the land, and those disciples couldn't possibly outrun it. No matter how they struggled, they were devoured by the flames. The middle and late-stage divine flame disciples didn't immediately die when they were devoured by the lava. But the power of their divine flames couldn't possibly block the lava for more than a brief moment. Furthermore, they were unable to fly away. Some disciples were covered in fire as they fled as fast as they could, but they were still caught up by the lava. After their divine flames were exhausted, they were turned into nothingness. Li Kai and the others were horrified as they watched, and cold sweat dripped down their backs. Mu Qingyun almost turned away, unable to watch. Long Chen looked at her. Do you pity them? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.